Spark can be an unpredictable city. But fluency doesn't mitigate its problems. In some ways, it amplifies them. This is why we're deployed. But we've seen better days.
Then why are we just now debriefing?
This mission is not complete.
I only know of her. Our lack of data collection is a problem.
Valdez, I'm aware of your investigative talents. Braxwell spoke highly of you, and that's why you're on this team. Local law enforcement handles itself very well. But there are those with abilities. Some believe themselves to be good. Others don't even attempt to act as if they are. Either way, we're involved. Not everyone will agree with our status. But that can be said for anything. May I remind you both, we're Alpha Core, and failure is not what we do.
The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences.
We haven't got Gary with the board.
Apparently, we have an audience of goblins dying.
Yeah. Lock balls. Lock balls. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Real BBC. I'm your host. This week, shouldn't be, but I am. As from Hill versus Babyface, Gary has got planes, trains, and automobile issues, so he's unable to join us today. But we have a stellar cast, so that's going to be okay by me. So before we introduce them, you know him, you love him. He's a Cthulhu god, jumping between dimensions. Morley, how you doing? I love you.
Oh, good. I'm good. I watched this awesome movie in the cinemas from the Marvel Studios. It's a crowning achievement. It really goes to show how far they've come. And I guess apparently some people are going to want us to maybe talk about it a little bit today. That's going to be fun.
Okay, we can talk about what's it called?
I think it's cool. It was The Killer from Dave Fincher. Yeah, I'm watching, talking about that. There was that other movie that pooped out called Marvels. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about that.
I thought it was called The Literal Death of Captain Marvel.
If only, mate. Nothing can kill it. Not even Big Hammer.
Oh, I know. The box office seems to be doing a pretty good job.
Captain Marvel versus the box office. Is that the third movie?
How dare you easily defeat me?
See, that's the obvious South Park joke. They make a villain like a superhero thing called the box office or something. It's right there.
Writes
$1 million
itself.
Idea. Yeah.
Writes itself. I did a video behind the scenes today. I've got to edit it and put it up with Paul Chato. And there was an idea that was floated around of a show that just writes itself.
There was an idea.
But it would never get made.
No.
Because of the studio system today. But speaking of the studio system, we might be having a little bit of a chat about a studio system, maybe a little bit of a Netflix studio system. But we got a couple of absolute legends of the comic book industry returning. And very, very welcome to return as well is just absolute Batman God, Dead Man God, and now Dracula, the Impaler God.
Yes.
Kelley Jones. Kelley, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Ass. It's a pleasure to be here. Good to see you, Mahler.
Hello.
Did you see the Marvels?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, how unfortunate.
I was busy drawing Dracula.
Well,
I guess you could spend your time that way.
It's a lame excuse, but I don't think you could hand that into a teacher and get away with it. That's all I'm saying, Kelley. I thought you would be front and center with your little pink pussy hat on and cheering on those wonderful heroes.
I don't know. I didn't even know it had come out until everyone started talking about it. So
that's really weird. Because I don't think a lot of people know, judging by the box office.
Yeah,
that's what everyone's talking about is the box office. They're just talking about the actual film.
It's the only interesting thing to talk about the film, because the film has the same plot as Spaceballs.
Hey man,
there we go.
Okay?
Yeah,
and making an appearance first time on the show, another comic book legend. We are talking big ass writer here, Grendel. And hello.
Batman Grendel, yes.
Yeah, I got my back. Big Batman boy. Big Batman boy. So that was actually my first introduction to you and the writer of the Dracula Kickstarter, which is pinned in the comment section, fans. So if you hear anything that you like today, you're interested in what we show you, because we'll be showing you the trailer and all that. Please do support the campaign. There's only 3 days left, I think. 2.
Yep.
2, and because you're an American and we're British, you just swore at us. But same to you, Matt. Same to you, mate.
What is that in British?
Yeah, what is that?
Right. Do you know the history? I'll tell you the lore of this. That means fuck off in the UK, right?
Yeah.
And the reason it's this, I mean, you do that in the US. The reason it's this is it goes all the way back to archers on the battlefield. Because when archers were captured, they would have their draw fingers cut off.
Oh, so this is defiance. I can still pull
archers,
my bow.
Yeah, archers would taunt the opposition by showing them that they had their draw. Because obviously, when the arrows come in, it's good night.
Yeah.
So how they would taunt.
That's great.
So that's the actual history, folks. The lore of why
if you got
that.
All the drawing fingers cut off, you just use your feet. You know,
is this way? The Winston Churchill is this way, right?
That's V for victory.
That's V for victory. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And also the writer of Dracula, Matt Wagner. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Quick, ass, do the goblin sounds.
God, how does DSP even talk? Matt, first question, big question. What's your favorite part of Item? No, never mind. Matt, did you see the Marvels?
No, I am. I'm pretty much one of those that ever since the pandemic, I have not been to a theater. I just lost the habit, and I just don't. There's almost nothing that I give a shit enough about to want to go see it fresh like that. I'm content to wait.
Yeah.
I have a nice big screen at home and a good sound system, and I like the ability to get up and piss whenever I want and eat whatever I want, and just that freedom. So I literally don't give a fuck whether I see something right away or not. I don't care what it is. Wait, I will amend that. I went to see The Last Voyage of the Demeter because that was homework for Dracula.
Yes, it was.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. Well, if you got up for a piss in the Marvels, when you got back, it might have finished because it was quite a short film, 88 minutes and out. Yeah,
Wait, it's only 80 minutes.
88.
Wow.
That's the actual runtime of the film. It was over 2 hours on the first screener, but it got immediately thrown into the editing bay.
Wow.
And then they cut about 20 minutes off. It's about the first one was about 2 hours, 20 minutes. And then they cut it down to about an hour 45, an hour 50. And then it was thrown back into the editing bay. And then the final screener was 88 minutes. And having seen it, that's the one that we clearly got.
Well, I will say, I think most films should aim at more like 90 minutes. I think it's a much tighter format.
Yeah.
My dear friend Tim Sale, the dearly departed Tim Sale, always used to say, any film in the world's great for the first 20 minutes, and almost all of them suck for the last 20 minutes.
Yes, he did.
Sticking that landing, it's hard, been a problem for a long time. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
John Wick,
especially the problem with the superhero films is there's a certain sameness to the actions. There's only so many energy beams you can see. There's only so many punches into buildings you can see before it's just all the same fucking shit over and over again.
Yeah, you gotta get something different. You gotta do something a little bit.
I'm far more interested to see Fincher's The Killer that Mahler was talking about there. And the strange thing about The Killer is, in almost none of the PR about the film is it mentioned that it's based on a graphic novel, a French graphic novel.
Yeah, I didn't know that until after I'd seen it.
Yeah, which I loved. I thought it was terrific, beautifully drawn.
I didn't know that.
The artist's name is
first I heard of that. I didn't know that.
Gorgeously drawn, and a real nice read too. Has the same, from what I've read about the film, has the same sort of kind of dry approach to this character's profession and how he enacts his hits.
I need to see that. I'm actually, from what I've heard, it's rather interestingly, from what I've heard about The Killer, there's sort of the things that people have said are maybe negative. I'm sort of taking those and thinking, no, this sounds good. I'm sort of really liking what you're telling me here about very slow, a lot of build up, goes through the whole process. It's kind of really detailed about how he does this and what. And I'm just like, this sounds great. This is the kind of there's too much straight into bollocks at times and not enough showing the process.
Yeah, because that whole, you got to grab them in the first 10 minutes. All right, man, that too. How many times have we seen? Is there not some cleverer way to intrigue people than just grabbing them by the nuts right out of the gate?
I like a hook. I like just a little tease, a little hook. Let's see where it goes. Yeah. Some of the films lend itself to other stuff. I mean, I love my John Wick, but John Wick, the first John Wick, 1 hour 36 minutes.
Yeah. Tidy.
And it's just perfect because it just gets the pacing right, everything right, every beat right. And I'm just like, that's what we need. An hour and 36 minutes. One of my favorite films of all time, Beverly Hills Cop. I'm mentioning it because I actually managed to get a GIF out of it today because somebody said, name a movie you've seen more than 7 times in a GIF. Had to be Beverly Hills Cop for me. Again, it's just a little bit over 90 minutes.
I was going to say, is that only 90 minutes? Oh, great.
It's not much longer than that.
They don't know how to ask the right questions at the beginning of movies anymore. They don't know how to bring you in by asking a question. They want to show you an answer. And so at that point, they have to almost backtrack then to start the movie again. And again,
if you're grabbing people like that, then what do you, with that bombastic intro, what do you build up to? Again, more punches into buildings, more energy blasts. Just
I really quite like the way you put that, by the way, like in terms of hooks, because I was just thinking, when's the last film out of all of them that sort of did that? I was thinking remember Infinity War's opening where you just have a guy who beats up Hulk, kills Loki, destroys the Asgardian ship, and he's coming for Earth. It's like, there you go. That's nice and simple. Then you compare it to the Marvels where it's like, A lady in a distant part of the galaxy on a moon has picked up a bangle.
Oh.
Okay. I don't even know what am I supposed to do with that? Like,
well, I think also you had to know a lot of the streaming shows to understand what was going on from what I understand too.
as someone who's seen all of them, it makes it even worse.
Well, I would say, you remember how the Infinity Stones were very specifically set up in different films, different Infinity Stone, different film. So they were saying, these are the Infinity Stones. This is what they do. This is why it's so big. That's why if you combine them to the gauntlet, it's going to be such a huge, massive thing. What is a negaband to a regular person? What is it?
Honestly, the answer's not even clear.
What's its power?
If you've seen Miss Marvel,
I would say here too. It's kind of one of the things that's this insularness is kind of the problem with comics too. In that you're supposed to know way more than just remember when you were a kid picking up a comic. You didn't know everything about every fucking little character stretching on till the beginning and end of time. It was styled to just entice you right then and there. And I don't know. I think everybody's kind of.
You see,
and I have to contribute that to just the fact that these huge corporate universes are just too self-congratulatory, instead of focusing on just telling a story,
Comics it's a niche field, it's a niche field. And when you're dealing with niche fields, particularly when you're going into, geekdom, nerddom, or whatever you want to call it, we don't need to know everything immediately. One of the beauties about comics is wherever you pick up, probably I'm going to stop around 2010, but wherever you pick up a comic and you enjoy the comic, you enjoy the hook of it. Who is this character? What drives them? What motivates them? Who are the characters that surround them? It pushes, it lends itself to going back, getting more, and then going back and getting more of that character branches out into the other characters in those universes, worlds, etc. But that's because it's focused towards that sort of person, that person who's so inclined. But you take that and then you put it to the normie and you try and corporatize it. It doesn't work.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that because a number of years ago, Legendary Entertainment did a brief foray into comics with Legendary Comics, and I wrote a big long my big long forgotten invisible epic that I did with Simon fucking Bisley. Almost 800 pages of material. Nobody's ever read it practically.
Damn.
But I turned in the first issue script, and they flew me down to Burbank to talk about it because they had notes on it, and they had given it to a movie reader to do the notes. And of course, they were all completely fucking wrong for a comic audience, And I had to tell them, look, you got this wrong. This isn't a stupid movie audience that needs everything over-explained to them. The comic people are more like television viewers in that they will dig out that minutia, and they love figuring things out from tiny little hints,
Yes.
And I will say, to their credit, I argued them out of it. They backed off. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I mean, comics, like TV and film, it's a visual medium for the most part. There's a lot of visuals on the page. Great writing. A lot of visuals on the page.
Too. It's a physical thing. You can go find the other issues. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's why I am not a believer in digital. They're great if you're on the if you're on the road or you need something to use for material. But something like this is never going to be replaced for your proper comic fan. You need the tactility of it. You need that tactile aspect,
totally agree.
flicking through, touching it, feeling it, reading it, closing it, bagging it, boarding it, putting it into sequence, the whole.
I would even say smelling it. There's a certain smell to
there is comics. They used, before they changed it all, modernized it with all the modern stuff. But when you were picking up the more paper-esque ones, and you taking out the bat, and it's like, oh yeah, there was definitely a whole process to that, which isn't there, and you even with great writers, you'll see plenty of times that they'll just let the artist move the story. You don't have to say anything here. You don't have to say, now I'm walking through here because I'm looking for a thing. No, you've, as the writer, already set up what he's doing, where they're going. So the artist can then, like with Batman is, some of the best things about, like, Jim Starlin was really good with Batman.
Well, the thing about comics is every element you're talking about there needs to be in simpatico, in harmony with each other.
Yes.
There's an old famous quote from Edgar Allan Poe that in a short story, every word has to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And in comics, I always find it's the same. All the comics I try and work on, whether I'm writing for somebody like Kelley or doing my own thing, is that you can't get the whole story just from the visuals. You can't get the whole experience just from the script. None of it really comes to vibrant life without the color. And of course, the lettering needs to add an oral element.
Yes.
Somebody described to me one time that comic book lettering needs to be the opposite of children. It needs to be heard and not seen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the best comic book lettering does that. Just kind of disappears on the page and forms a narrative in your mind, But all of those need to add up to, a whole that's greater than the sum of its parts. And the best comics do that,
100%.
And also you can't be afraid of an auteur with this stuff. You have to, that's where the change comes from. That's where you bring in interest, and outside interest at that is what drew me to initially liking Matt was his own guy when I was reading books in 80, and he stood out in a time of standouts. So when he came over to do Batman, and I've told him this many times, it looked like he invented Batman, which I really respected that, because the company was trusting him to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought in new people, and it made people also trust a company to do that. And so when you're talking these films, they don't do that. They'll say something about an auteur, and they're afraid of an auteur. So for every Dune, you get what you get now, where you
a Marvels.
Yeah, well, and you can go on even I think you finally get you'll tire out an audience that begins to know the tropes before they're presented, and what people want is to not know the tropes. They want to know.
Right. As a creator, I've always considered it my job. I have to take my audience somewhere they don't expect.
Yes.
If they know where I'm taking them, I've fucking failed,
Yeah.
And they will get complacent, and they won't be entertained, and they won't be intrigued,
Yeah.
And that's our job as storytellers, to entertain and intrigue.
Yeah. You never want your audience ahead of you. If your audience is ahead of you, that you definitely failed. And as looking back at TV, let's use TV for example. Back in the day, you could get an idea about how the beats were going to go, but one of the beauties is sometimes just where it actually genuinely took you to get there. Yeah, and that was the really interesting part. Now we are so far ahead of these films because they're not well written. They're so poorly written and basically written. They're either wasting your time and you sat there like, nothing's going on. Nothing of when we say nothing, of course, we're talking nothing of consequence. It's busy doing nothing. But we know exactly the beats. But the beats play out exactly how we think they will.
As you're expecting, yeah.
It's so predictable. And
I would venture that they write them too fast.
And too many people together writing.
Well, that too. That's
yes.
Look, when I don't know what to do, I just add blood. It's as simple as that. When you're not sure, more blood, and
it works for you, dude.
Yeah, it's just. But no, there's a way to do this, and it's trust yourself. You know what you want. We know what we want. We know what we look for. I don't want to be someone sitting in judgment all the time saying, this is good and this isn't, but I do want to sit in judgment of saying this is entertaining and this is not.
Yes.
And simply put, it does. Working with Matt was, I know, for example, Dracula inside out and backwards, or thought I did, until he started talking about it, and then he said what he wanted to do, and then I said, this is all brand new to me. It's Dracula. He's not changed it, but it's different. And that in and of itself is exciting, not just to create it. you can that's just the professional side of it. If I'm entertained by it, I know other people are entertained by it. So to divorce yourself from that for any other objective, in terms of how you put out a film or whatever you guys are talking about now with film, it means there's people there who don't care about this stuff, or it doesn't make sense to them, or it's or they trivialize these things as not important. As Matt says, these beginnings, these 10-minute explosive beginnings without really asking a question. Audiences want to be challenged. Yeah. And not ambiguity is not a thing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
You know,
being clever is nothing to be afraid of. I mean, the person who put Columbo as an example, Columbo shows you the murder, shows you the process of the murder right at the start. And Columbo was obviously different in its take because it was the first time to do the reverse on the whodunit. It was like, we know who done it. We know exactly how they did it. But how's Columbo going to work this out?
Yeah.
And so when you've, as the audience, have already seen how they did it and the process that was involved, it was how clever can we make this detective look in working it out? And
the joy is to see him like a bloodhound sniffing his way little by little to the
well, and what I meant, what it is that what the audience is then trying to be the detective and say, well, what did I miss? Because it's all here.
Yes.
What did I miss? And that's made the beginning interesting from that point.
Yeah.
No,
so
look,
and it makes it, but it's logical. You know, there was nothing illogical about Columbo. He didn't just pull something out of his ass.
Yeah, right.
It
was already there. Yeah,
it was always there, and it's worked out in the little clues and the little hints. And then when he puts those little, and I think some of the best Columbo episodes were the ones where it's like 20 minutes in, and he'll go to the person. I know it's you.
Yeah,
I know it's you. I just need to find out how you did it and prove it. Yeah. But I know it's you, and those were the ones that I like the most.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, Matt, you're gonna say something.
Oh, I was just gonna kind of in keeping with what you were talking about there. The bits where he would go, and by the way, he's not explaining to the characters, he's explaining it to you at home.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And it just worked so well in that regard.
Yeah. It was Columbo's still one of the greatest shows ever made. One of my favorite shows of all time.
And not adapted from a book, not adapted from something else, created for the medium to be every bit as interesting as Perot or Holmes or any of those things.
100% up there. Yeah. I mean, he's one of the greatest detectives of all time that deserves to be said in the same breath as a Poirot or a Holmes or Miss Marple or somebody.
I find them still fascinating after all these years. So
I watch it nearly every week. I'll watch a Columbo episode. I don't know how many times I've seen them. One of the watch TV shows I've ever, but I can go back and rewatch. I've got the box set. I just go back and rewatch the cigar box set. It's really cool.
Yeah,
it's just too good. It's just too good, and I love clever writing. You know, there's no sort of arrogance about clever writing. And some of the great stories behind Columbo, of course, was. He was just meant to be in a suit. He was just meant to be a regular detective in a suit. And when they were filming it, he said it needs something. His character needs just a little something. So he had brought his own raincoat to the studio. So he got his own raincoat and put it on. And then that became, of course, and it's the same raincoat throughout the whole.
Well, you realize he was just as irritating to his fellow officers and superiors as he was to the guys he was hunting. He was a loner. He was his own guy off and doing what he was doing. And he only because he was successful did they not demote him or make him a traffic cop. So
no guns. Didn't carry a gun.
Well, most detectives don't. And they didn't feel they needed it making the television show. They didn't need that. It. Yeah.
That's just it. It was more of a statement of we don't need to have, a gunfight or anything to make this interesting.
Well, there were plenty of shows at the time doing that. Why be another one?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. When you set yourself apart, that's when you become noticed. Yeah. When you become generic, that's when you blend into everything. Yeah. That's why you need to have, like you said, there's too many voices. That's why you need to have a specific voice. or a partnership of voices working in unison together. But it's just a hodgepodge of
no,
crud.
and it's why I wanted to work with Matt in a crowdfunding way, because I didn't want all those. I just wanted Matt to write and not worry what a publisher or an editor or anybody else would say, or any outside chattering. I just wanted
we jumped into this. I mean, we produced this whole first book on spec by ourselves, and believe me, we've been working on it for a couple of years. It's been fucking killing us not to tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
Just completely, especially because we were just so thrilled with the results. Kelley would send me this art, and it was just so much better than I dared hope that it would be. And it was just, everything was just coming together so well, and we're just like, we can't fucking tell anybody yet.
Well, I'm working with Matt, who knows what he's doing. I hope I know what I'm doing. The colorist Jose knows what he's doing. Rob, the letterer, knows what he's doing. So no one had to tell everyone what to do.
Yeah,
we're just doing it, and you make adjustments or focus points on what you want to do. But generally speaking, we're all just doing what we do, and there's no interference. And at that point, if Matt's correct, I was enjoying the results too. And at a certain point, you have something good because it's authentic, it's sincere, it's clearly 100% what Matt wanted. It's even if I'm thinking I missed something here or there, it's as close to as I can get to what I want on paper. And at that point, you realize this is the way it always was. This is the way I knew it.
Let's crank it back just a little bit to how the whole project began, because I feel like we're kind of circling around it instead of.
I'm gonna show the trailer off now.
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
we've been talking about the colors, the art, the writing. Let's just have a little look at what we're discussing here. Let's bring the audience in to give them something physical to see.
Sure.
It is said that history is memory enshrined. Some might claim entomb, for history belongs to the bold, the victorious, those who are ravenous for power, no matter the cost. A craving I have manifested for centuries. I am such hunger, incarnate. And this, the history that I have won, against countless enemies, and across 1,000 blood-drenched battlefields. For I am the son of the dragon, Dracula.
Bram Stoker's classic novel created arguably the most famous character in all of literature. Yet it leaves many aspects of Dracula's history and persona only hinted at, and thus incredibly intriguing and mysterious. This series of books will fill in these tantalizing gaps and provide a more complete and terrifying portrait of one of the most popular literary characters of all time.
He had come to me with this great horror idea, stuff I had never thought of, never seen, and I love Dracula. I love vampire horror.
Our collaboration here is the culmination of our longtime friendship and an incredible synthesis of our two lengthy and accomplished careers in comics.
The joy of working on it is absolutely on every page, every panel.
This isn't yet another retelling of the novel in comics form. We're bringing you the never-before-told stories behind the story, the sinister tales hidden in the shadows of the original legend.
The heart of Dracula, blood that flows in his veins. It's as much in telling a story as the blood he spills. And in this, he spills a lot.
I'm not exaggerating when I say that this project is the magnum opus of everything we might have hoped it could be.
This is the journey of my brutal life and bloody undeath down through the centuries. The stories never cease. To defeat the godless, one must become godless. Dracula, Book 1, The Impaler.
Whoa,
That fucking sells it.
Yep.
That's a great trailer. And chat, before we continue, I have pinned the link to the Kickstarter in the chat above. So if you click that link, that'll take you directly to there. Currently on 210,000, which is spectacular. So very well done indeed. but there is only 58 hours to go. So this is Last Chance Saloon, and for number one. So get in there, get on this. I've definitely got on this. But it's also I'm going to bring up the page as well because you hold on, making sure I'm logged out. Because you've actually added a little bit more to the page itself. So this will give you look at this. Hello. Look at that. That is beautiful stuff. I mean, Kelley.
Yeah, we added a tier of some original sketches from Kelley and I that you can add on to the purchase of the printed books themselves. That's our standard cover by Kelley. That's my variant cover.
Yeah.
By me.
Oh, jeez, so good, man. Kelley, man. You know I love your stuff, but holy.
Yeah, it is. Kelley's just knocking it out of the fucking park here.
I love that.
That voiceover there on the trailer is basically that script. That's page one you're looking at there. It's basically the script from page one.
Yeah. I was. I imagined it would because good word. I like the godless bit at the end as well.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
That's from about halfway through the book. That's the limited edition, 666 diabolical copies.
35 left. There's only 35 of those left. By the way,
it has red foil stamping there in the logo on the cover, and then a tip-in sheet that's signed and numbered by both Kelley and I inside.
Oof. Yeah. I got me one of them. I got me one of them.
And then we also again, this part of our approach here was to try and recreate the comics that meant a lot to us when we were younger. You know, creepy, eerie, heavy metal, such like that. At that time, these artists' portfolios were very popular, you know. So we did a set there of 7 plates from Kelley's black and white work in the book, and they're black and white, so you get to see all of his magnificent line work. They are without the lettering, but each one has a caption at the bottom that is taken from my script on that particular page, an evocative line of text to kind of describe it.
Yeah. What size are these?
They're 11 by 17. They're the size of the original artwork, and they come in a lovely envelope that has spot gloss printing on the front, and then they also have a certificate of authentication that's also signed and numbered by both Kelley and I.
You might just talk me into another. Okay, so comment section, chat. The link is above. Please, if you hear anything, see anything that you like today, boy, I've seen plenty. In the conversation, go click, go support. 58 hours left, just over 2 days, and then that's it. So I gotta ask a basic bitch question, but I think it's a basic bitch question that the chat would probably be quite interested in hearing. We've had Kelley, but I'm going to go back to Kelley on this. Matt, what is your favorite adaptation, apart from your own, not allowed to say your own, of Dracula?
I don't have a favorite. That's why I did my own. You know, there's bits we love about all of them. You know, and we tried to take the parts we liked about all of them that we wanted to bring to the table. Our main goal was to stay true to Stoker's version. You know, anybody that's a fan of the novel knows that how magnetic a character Dracula is, and yet he's not in the novel very much. He's present, you know, when Jonathan Harker goes to Transylvania in the castle, and then once he comes to London, he's kind of off screen for almost all the action. And yet he still, as I said, is I consider him the most famous literary character of all time. You know, there are other famous literary characters, but none of them really have the global reach that name and that image has. You know, almost every fucking culture on earth knows what you mean or has a version of they know what they mean when you say Dracula. So I mean, we wanted, you know, we loved the feral aspect of Nosferatu. We love the kind of ferocity of Christopher Lee. We love the kind of charm of Frank Langella. We love the kind of muscularity of the Jack Palance version. I mean, on and on and on. But none of them truly hit the mark like we wanted ours to be. You know.
Well, it left an opening. It left an opening because, for me, I love Hammer films. I love the Hammer Draculas.
Yeah,
I will always.
I do too. Yeah.
But I will concede it's not Stoker's novel. It's aspects and pieces and bits, and it's but it's brilliantly directed, and they're brilliantly and as Matt says, had the best titles of movies ever, you know.
Yeah. Dracula has risen from the grave. Who the fuck doesn't want to go see that movie?
Yeah, you gotta go see that.
Taste the blood of Dracula.
Yeah.
I'm in.
But to Matt's credit, he always felt I should be colored really bright, and those movies are really bright. So it connected. As soon as he said that to me, I went, "Yeah, I've gotta go for that," because I love, obviously Peter Cushing and and all those guys, and those films are bright. I mean, they were amazingly bright for the time, and even now when you watch them you go, man, that they really cranked up the color in that.
And that, you know, that we're talking here about cinematic versions of Dracula,
Yeah.
as you asked about our favorite versions. You know, there are other literary versions as well. About 10-15 years ago there was a really good book called The Historian by one woman named Elizabeth Kosva. Big, long, fat book, and it's a real slow burn, but it's a Dracula book, and it's really great. Kelley was talking about, recently telling me about a short story I didn't know about by pulp writer Manly Wade Wellman called The Devil Is Not Mocked.
Yeah.
I discovered, this is a series of books that I saw all the time. They were kind of ubiquitous on book stands when I was younger. It's called the Dracula Horror Series, and they're these thin little 60s paperbacks, and these are so fucking bizarre and cool. And basically, it's a crime fighting team. You have one dude who is basically Professor X. He's in a wheelchair and he has telekinetic powers.
Oh.
His assistant / butler / martial arts expert is this giant Puerto Rican guy. Then they have this other member of the team who's an ancient werecat woman. And the professor guy, and I got to describe how this works too. The professor guy, they find Dracula's casket, and to enlist Dracula as their secret weapon in their fight against crime, they take they take the stake that he's been staked with, they take it out, they take a big shard of it, and the Professor X dude operates on Dracula and inserts this shard right next to his heart. And so anytime Dracula gets out of line, he telekinetically makes the splinter pierce his heart and take him out of action. So he's constantly got him under the thumb, like, you know, you have to do what I say.
Oh my God,
and
Dracula's Iron Man.
Trying to break out of this guy's control, but he basically uses him as his nuclear weapon in their fight against crime. You know, when things have gone bad, he sends Dracula into the field, and Dracula fucks everybody up. There were like 10 or 12 of these books. Yeah, by an author named Robert Lory, Lory. They are a blast. They are a blast. You know, they're not highfalutin and they ain't high literature, but boy, they're fun page turners.
Yeah. It's like Dracula narcolepsy, you know?
Yes, yeah.
See, there was no mention of the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing Dracula. I just can't believe it. It's one of the most culturally influential takes on the character.
I would say that my last favorite Dracula portrayal, if it's in film, was in Monster Squad. I like that Dracula a lot. Duncan Rieger, I believe, was the actor.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was a great Dracula, and he was wearing the whole Lugosi outfit, and but he was terrifying. It's like he said, "Okay, we're going to take Lugosi, put in some Lee, and here you go," and it worked.
I certainly won't claim it's perfect by any far stretch, but I quite liked a lot of aspects of the 3-part BBC series that was done by Mark Gatiss and what's the other guy's name? The guys that did Sherlock.
Moffat, right? Moffat, Stephen Moffat.
Stephen Moffat, exactly. Yeah. Again, not a perfect rendition, but full of a lot of creepy shit. And the guy that played him, Klaus Bang, really brought like an ancient decadence. Like you really felt like this guy had been around for a long fucking time and was still sharp as a tack, you know, and was still malevolent as fuck every step of the way, and loved being a vampire.
Yeah,
loved being a vampire. Yeah.
So the I think the most commercialized one is the Gary Oldman Dracula.
Oh, don't get me started. Buddy.
No, this is exactly why I'm bringing it.
Look, here he goes again.
Yeah. This is why I am not a fan of that Dracula film.
Amen.
Neither am I a fan of that portrayal at all. But I do want to poke the bear and get your thoughts on that.
Well, okay. It's a real love-hate relationship because right off the gate, they said this is the most faithful adaptation ever. It definitely is not. It strikes a lot of the notes from the novel. A lot, all the characters are the right versions of their characters for the most part, except fucking Dracula. This whole thing about Coppola was saying at the time, it's not a horror novel, it's a romance novel. It absolutely is not a romance novel. There's nothing romantic in it at all. Dracula does not have any, tender feelings towards Mina. None of that shit. At the same time, I love Coppola's cinema and his filmmaking in that. The fact that he distinctly said, we're not going to use any CGI. We're going to use all these old school techniques and models and drop behinds and all that stuff. I think a lot of it just looks phenomenal in that regard. I think the casting is absolute dog shit. I think everybody is fucking horrible in it.
Wait a minute.
Oldman is horrible.
Wait a
I
minute.
think Hopkins is
Keanu
horrible.
Reeves in there. Come on.
Keanu's terrible, and Winona's terrible. Your four main people are fucking awful. And the very most unforgivable thing is Oldman is just not scary. There's
no.
He has two pretty good moments in the castle. The bit where he licks off the blood off the razor, and the bit where he laughs at Harker going crazy after he's fed the baby to the brides. As soon as he gets to London, he's this fucking emo fop, for like the rest of it, And it's just like, there's the one I really love to like rail about is there's a scene where Harker's escaped the castle and Mina rushes to his side in Transylvania and they get married, even though she's been having this affair with Dracula. And Dracula's like in half beast form, and there's literally just oceans of tears coming down his face, and he's raging and weeping, and Dracula does not fucking weep, period. Ever.
No.
So you loved it. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, so you poked the bear and you got it, man.
What I wanted. I got what I wanted.
But again, there's a lot to like about that movie, but the general the sum is the whole.
Well, I always try to like it. It's like every once in a while I pull it out and I say, okay, maybe it's changed.
Maybe it'll be better than the last time I watched it, but never fucking is.
And because I love the score to it, and I love how it looks. There's so many great things about it, and I like the people generally who in their careers. I like their careers. So you.
I love Gary Oldman. I just think he's horribly miscast.
Yeah, I love Gary Oldman. I love Coppola. Clearly love Coppola, but it's every time I find myself realizing that young Kelley was right 30 some odd years ago when he saw that. I was disappointed,
One disappointing thing I love to point out is the final casting for Dracula himself came down to Oldman or Gabriel Byrne. And Gabriel Byrne was going through a shitty divorce at the time and couldn't leave LA. Just imagine how much better that would have been with Gabriel Byrne as Dracula.
I call it the Ellen Barkin factor. He
was getting divorced from Ellen Barkin. Yes, that is true.
I'll always hold her responsible for not getting a Gabriel Byrne Dracula.
And the studio is responsible for Keanu. Winona Ryder was dating Johnny Depp at the time, and she wanted him to play Harker. And he would have been much better as Harker. He would have been a better Harker. If not a perfect British accent, at least more passable than Keanu's.
I mean, everyone makes fun of him.
Yeah. I never knew. I like
accent is horrific.
Yeah, it fades in and out, but even when he's doing it, it doesn't sound English,
But it's still like, dude, bro. Even when it's like,
yeah.
I love Keanu, but I mean, it's his greatest comedic role ever. But
to be fair to him, I find British actors can do American accents, and I can't tell. I'm always shocked that that was a British actor. And
Hugh Laurie,
Kelly Riley in Yellowstone. I didn't know she was British until she gave an interview. But man, you can't find Americans who can do it. You just know they're doing it.
And
right?
Hopkins all over the fucking board portrayal of Van Helsing. It's only after about the fifth or sixth disappointing time of watching that film that I finally realized I think you're supposed to assume that he's syphilitic
Yeah.
Because in the very first scene, he's talking about syphilis, and he's letting a bat bite his thumb as a demonstration to the operating theater that
you're right, Matt. I thought about that after you told me that, and I think you're 100% right that he's.
But it's not clear enough.
No,
it's not
it
clear enough
isn't
to make
clear
any
enough.
fucking sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not clear, but I think you're right that he has that, and that's supposed to give an explanation why he's bonkers half the time and sane half the time.
Yeah.
So what about Dracula Untold?
Oh Jesus fucking! Don't get me started. All right, so here let me fold that back into ours. Dracula Untold, again, too romantic. Grants Vlad too many Vlad the human Vlad too many noble motivations. Saving his people and such. But one of the things when I approached our Dracula is that, as I said, I'm dealing with, to my mind, the most famous literary character of all time, and definitely the most famous vampire of all time. So I needed to come up with some extraordinary manner that he becomes a vampire. I can't just have him get bitten by another vampire. That's fucking boring, And, even though in Dracula Untold, he goes and basically sacrifices himself to get the power to save his people. We take a similar approach with ours, but it doesn't grant him that nobility that Dracula Untold tries to. And there again, it just makes him kind of a simpering idiot after a while,
Well, Matt told me there's not going to be any romance in the Dracula I write. There'll be a hell of a lot of lust.
Yeah.
Yes.
There will be that, but he's about himself. He's not about anybody else, and that was music to my ears because that's the Dracula I always think of is, and certainly a character that would attract attention. I like that Matt basically said we're dealing with the first supervillain, right? This is the first one. And he's going to be the focus, and it's not going to be to chastise him or anything. It's just tell his story. Matt is,
and I have some experience with that.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's not by Matt just writes in this way, and it's why I love his scripts. And he's like going, "Hey, this isn't me. I'm just telling you what happened. This is not any bias from me. This is just who he is. This is what it is." And that makes for an uncomfortable, pleasant read because you don't know what you're going to get every page. You don't know where it's going, and in sequences,
it's the approach I've always tried to take with Grendel. That Grendel's a very violent book. It's basically about people who use violence to solve their problems. And I never tried to justify the violence, even in a character like Christine Spar, the second incarnation of the character. She's basically trying to wreak revenge for the death of her child, and certainly that's a motivation almost anybody can get behind. But yet I never tried to justify the violence. It always comes back and has its own cost on the wielder. And too often I think in contemporary popular fiction we lose sight of that. It's we want the bad guy to wreak their holy vengeance with no blowback.
Well, there's an odd
and I'm not talking legal blowback. I'm talking emotional.
There's an odd morality to an ethics and morality in Matt's Dracula that I just adored because he doesn't see it. Right, the Dracula's not seeing it, but he thinks what he's doing is good. It's what's necessary. It's the right.
Just what is.
Yeah. And there's no and it just happens. There's no oh my God, or it just does it. And that's far more powerful. That's I think to an audience that's far more powerful. And it invites revisitation because you will come back to it and as your life one of the things I enjoy are when I reread something, and as I get older, it has a more sophisticated meaning. And that you look for a script like that. You look for a story like that.
Okay, yeah. Let's just flip this. Ask me what my favorite Dracula is.
Tell us. Please share.
Dracula, Dead and Loving It, Leslie Nielsen, obviously.
Did you see? I have not seen. Did you see Renfield? I have not seen Renfield.
I haven't seen that yet.
No, I saw the trailer, and I gotta say, I saw the trailer, and I ran. I ran in the opposite direction as fast as I can. Admittedly, not very
A
fast.
friend of mine said all of his
I'm
scenes
probably
are
going to watch
solid.
it eventually, but I felt like I didn't need it being so firmly enmeshed as I am in a non-comedic Dracula.
Yeah. I look. What is it? We live in the shadows. We work in the shadows. Whatever it is.
What we do in the shadows. Yeah.
What we do in the shadows. I think that's a very good film. I haven't seen the show, but I do enjoy the film.
Dude,
I think
it's unbelievable that they are able to take that one fucking joke premise and stretch it that far. You keep thinking they've got to bleed this dry. No, total pun intended. This is got to run out soon, and it never does. The show is magnificent. It is absolutely fantastic. Yeah,
I just saw the film.
Just keep taking you in new directions you were never counting on. Oh man, I just can't rant about the show enough. It's fantastic.
I agree.
Yep,
I agree.
It's nice to have those little twists. I mean, I was brought up on Hammer horror. You know,
did they run those on television a lot? When
big time. I mean, if you mention Dracula, it's Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. That was both of them. It was Van Helsing versus Dracula. And Hammer films were such a massive staple here in the UK. And even they were 20, 30 years, 20 odd plus years removed from when I was a kid. So to have them still be so popular and still have, plenty of replay value.
I would say it's more popular now because of access. I see them more now. And hear about them more now, and there's more books written about them and magazines on that, and so the legs of it kind of are surprising to me, but I'm glad. I mean, I love it.
Kelley and I were talking about the fact that when we were young, there wasn't even VHS yet, right? So to see stuff, you had to pour through the TV guide at the beginning of every week and mark off the shit that you were going to make sure you were there for. And that's why I mentioned that Jack Palance version, because that was produced by Dan Curtis, who did Dark Shadows, and so he was a real heavy hitter in the world of TV horror at the time. He also produced The Night Stalker, and both The Night Stalker and the Jack Palance adaptation of Dracula had a script by Richard Matheson, who of course wrote I Am Legend. Those are significant to us because it was on in prime time. You didn't have to wait. It was like, there's going to be a Dracula movie on a Thursday. Damn, I'm there. Yeah.
It became an event. And these things burned. And also the great thing, Matt, was a lot of my friends weren't allowed to watch it. So I always I was allowed to tell them. Just telling them the plots, they would have nightmares. That was great.
Yeah. But you said something about, there's no love. There's going to be plenty of lust, but there's no love. Right. And of course, there was a whole genre of Hammer or horror, vampiric horror. Lust of the Vampire.
I just finished watching all those. The Karnstein trilogy you're talking about.
And they were, they were what they were. It was titillation, but it was titillation with the horror vibe. But it was lust, there wasn't love stories there.
No,
it was always built around the premise.
They were doing, rather than Stoker, they were doing Le Fanu. So they were going to do that. They were trying to change it up. One of my all-time favorites is Vampire Circus, which is just this odd haunted circus with vampires in it to get revenge. And it was Hammer towards the end was coming up with some great stuff like that really inventive. Captain Kronos was another one of this vampire hunter.
Man, I wish he would have taken off as a series. That would have been
great.
Great.
That was the intent. Well, the guy did the Avengers, Brian Clemens, I believe. He wrote the Avengers and invented the Avengers and that kind of stuff. But I did like a lot of the On the Way Out Hammer, to me, has become just as fun.
And I was telling Kelley, I just watched Daughters of Darkness, which is a 1971 film by a Belgian filmmaker. That's part of that same lesbian vampire.
Is that the two sisters? Is that the two? No,
no, it's got a pair of newlyweds who kind of get stuck at this hotel. They're on their way. They missed the ferry to England, and they kind of eloped. So he's kind of reticent to tell his mother that he got married, and then this vampire woman and her vampire slave girl show up at the hotel as well, and it just becomes this kind of metaphor of faded decadence, and you know, the hotel's empty and spooky, and a lot of erotic betrayal, and I thought it was really quite good. I liked it better than the Karnstein stuff.
Yeah, and there's actually one that's quite good that came out maybe about 10 years ago by I believe her name is Anastasia or Alexandra Cassavetes, John Cassavetes' daughter, and she wanted to do an early 70s kind of a vampire film, and it's called Kiss of the Damned, and it is quite good. I looked at it. I had not heard of that either. Last time you mentioned that, I looked it up immediately. I got to track that down. It's a pretty good film.
Speaking of pussy, hello,
that's Sherman.
Hello, Sherman.
And Sherman doesn't want to be on TV.
Wow, vocal Sherman.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you know, I get where you're coming from, Matt, when you say Dracula's, you know, in your eyes, the most popular literary figure, because of where you look, where that's taken the whole expansion of vampires and the genres that they have now, you know, moved into. You know, with you got Frankenstein's monster. Let's just get it correct. Frankenstein's monster behind you. You know, when Frankenstein's monster's used, it's very rarely used in anything but horror. You know, you'll get maybe an offshoot of comedy, but it's you know, but everything else is more kind of horror centric. Sherlock Holmes,
the monsters is, you know, that's Frankenstein.
Monsters, Addams Family, you know, they're kind of offshoots, but even them in themselves, both of those, the Addams Family, you know, monsters did have the, you know, clearly did have the
Frankenstein character,
the Frankenstein's monster character, whereas the other one had the Lurch, which was, you could say, you know, similar.
Yeah,
but they originated late 50s, early 60s, the pair of them. So really, there hasn't been that much of an involvement. Young Frankenstein, of course, you know, Mel Brooks and all that, great stuff. But Sherlock Holmes, again, very rarely is like the legend of Holmes been comedic. There's only been like a couple of
Private Life of Sherlock Holmes,
or pushed off into other genres, which is weird because I think Sherlock Holmes lends itself to horror. Absolutely lends itself to horror, but the whole vampire that's gone on. You know, you've got comedy, you've got erotica, you know, you've got the horror, you've got this, you know, even like more kind of grounded detective-y.
You've got a Muppet.
Yeah. What in the it's permeated into so much.
Yeah.
Like I said, you know, you got this horror character, which is a Sesame Street puppet.
Yeah.
Chocula.
Yeah.
Chocula.
Although there's Frankenberry as well. So
and Frankenberry.
But the
Blaxploitation.
Yeah.
You know,
again, this is what I mean about how deeply ingrained it is in the zeitgeist. You know, it's an archetype more than a character now.
Yes,
and
the vampire.
People forget the original character. You know.
That's what I liked is that Matt. When we were banging around names, all the good names were taken, and then Matt just called me up one day and says the Impaler, and it gets right back to Vlad himself.
Vlad the Impaler. Yeah.
And each, so I can't remember when we spoke about this. This is, of course, the first of our plan. We're doing 4 of these.
Yeah.
And each of them will be the something. We're not revealing that yet, but each of them, the next will be Dracula the blank. You know, Dracula the blank.
Yeah. No, I mean, Kelley, I know Kelley's great at using his covers to create little stories in itself. Yeah. So I can see a progression there about how you would play with that and how that would work. But I have a very important question, legit as well, not bullshitting. And Mauler's probably going to appreciate this. You got to do this, the clashing. Okay, so who wins in a fight? Van Helsing, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Who wins?
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
He's just smarter.
He's
just smarter.
Yeah,
Mauler,
it's like
Mauler. How do you say
I mean,
that?
I don't know what you were expecting my answer to be, but I feel like Van Helsing's got the upper hand because he's got all the tools, the weaponry. Like I'm afraid.
We would have already
usually-
researched her.
She has youth on her side, but
we would have researched it
I don't know.
all.
I mean,
And-
unlike Van Helsing lives and breathes hunting these monsters. She's doing it while getting through high school and college and trying to maintain a job. She's like Spider-Man.
And periods. Come on.
So
yeah.
I remember Buffy has trouble defeating anything without a team.
Yeah,
too.
I can't remember. Did they ever do anything about that? About the fact that she bleeds? Can the vampires smell her better on those days?
But that's been used as well, hasn't it? Yeah. That has been used in the vampire ethos.
I never thought of that.
I want to address too, because people in chat like she has superpowers. Like she could be shot dead.
Yeah.
She's strong.
Van Helsing could be shot dead.
Yeah, but Van Helsing has the guns or the. Buffy will have like a stake, an axe, and maybe a sword or whatever. But she's probably gonna lose 10 times out of 10, more than likely.
Well, Van Helsing is like the Bruce Wayne Batman of vampire hunting. He'll find a way.
Yeah. I mean, that's why even today, it's not just Dracula. Van Helsing is always there.
Yeah.
Side by side. It's like Batman and Joker.
Maybe the better question would be Blade versus Van Helsing.
Ooh.
My buddy Judd Winnick, Judd and Brad Meltzer, they were college roommates, and they always used to argue Batman versus Captain America, who wins, and they both agreed Batman because he'd cheat.
Yeah, that is the correct answer. Yeah. He would find a way, and he wouldn't give a shit how.
No.
Yeah. That's absolutely. I mean, when they did the DC versus Marvel, and it was Captain America and Batman that got put together, and they did fight to a standstill. But as soon as in the sewer, when the water starts flushing out, Batman's just like, "Fuck this! You're done. You're done, mate. You're out of there. I'll use that."
Yeah.
But that's a good one. Blade versus Van Helsing.
Well, Blade is half vampire, so he's got a distinct advantage there, and of course he's got a lot of cool weaponry too. So,
but you got the ultimate vampire hunter though. That's It
depends on which portrayal of Van Helsing you're talking about. Whether you're talking about that action hero Hugh Jackman, or the more heady version. Even though Cushing played him with a certain physical panache. He was much more a man of science, than an action hero.
Yeah. Cushing always looks older than he was. There was a look back in those days where you'd be a kid watching it, think this guy's like 65. Yeah. And then you become an adult and you realize he was 38 or something.
Yeah. It was like Patrick Stewart. He's been 70 for about 70 years.
Yeah. I'm hoping that's going to be the same with me, but
I just want to be able to jump on tables and pull down curtains, and at that age, I was
they actually did a direct homage to that in that BBC version.
Yes, they did.
The female heroine who's what is her name? Agatha Van Helsing. I think so. Yeah. She does the same thing. She runs down the table and leaps on the curtains. And
you got to. I mean, that's just such a great angle. I was lucky. I have the Japanese. They only put it out briefly, but the Japanese had the original Hammer cut still after some censoring was done.
Oof.
And there's a fabulous to Match Point Dracula Doesn't Cry at the great scene where Peter Cushing's making the cross and the lights on him and he's crumbling. They just one shot of Dracula crying, like blood. And it was really creepy because he's not crying.
But that's the difference is he's crying for himself.
Yes.
And he'd do that. He wouldn't cry.
But it's just brief.
For a lover. No.
Yeah. It was the BFI put it out and they only did it. And I've never seen it again. I snagged a copy and there are several scenes that are in it that are more full, brilliant. But it was, whatever the capricious censorship rules. I don't see why that, it wasn't that Hammer wanted to do it, just was. But it's a really arresting scene.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Japanese thing because we've been talking genres and we've been talking different takes on Dracula, different takes on vampires and how that spawned the whole thing. But going to the East, they did their take on the vampire, which if you've seen like the Hong Kong vampire sort of stuff, where they're literally like, they're sort of like bouncing, bouncing along like that, and so they took a concept and just did their own completely.
I think that's from their folklore, truthfully.
Yeah,
yes. A cultural disconnect for Western viewers, for sure.
They integrated it with their folklore and their sort of stories and their boogeymen, for want of a better phrase, and they sort of combined it together with that. So you had these sort of like jumping, bouncing, sort of almost like kangaroo-esque.
Yeah. Well, of course. We've had these myths and legends since the beginning of time, all the way back to the Egyptians. There's always been corpses that rise from the dead and prey on the living. Yeah. And it was with Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla, and then later John Polidori's The Vampire, and finally codified in Stoker's Dracula, where for the first time we had these cognizant vampires that weren't just these kind of shambling grave risen revenants,
zombie type.
All of a sudden they were part of society, and they had a certain elegance to them, and that interpretation stuck. I mean, look, Anne Rice made her whole fucking career out of a version of that.
Yes.
I find her stuff a little too. Oh, everybody's a little too emo and
it's romanticized, it's a romanticized take.
Romanticized, yeah. A little too what's the word I'm looking for? A little too self-doubting and a little too self-involved, a little too navel staring for my tastes in regards to vampires.
Sure. Navel staring is a good
Lestat's not. He kind of stands out amongst her vampires as being the more Dracula-esque of any of them. But
did you guys see Midnight Mass?
Fucking loved Midnight Mass, top to bottom, every fucking moment of it. It's I constantly talk about how the best horror isn't just about the scares; it's about something else. It's about examining some aspect of human existence.
Yes.
And Midnight Mass, even though it had some really creepy shit in it, it wasn't about that. It was about faith and the loss of faith and addiction. And losing yourself to addiction. One of my absolute favorite vampire films is Let the Right One In. And Let the Right One In is about loneliness, whether it's the loneliness of being a bullied 12-year-old boy or an isolated, 200-year-old vampire, And again, pretty much every genre does this to its best effect. Dune is more about an examination of human society than it is about any special powers that Paul has. Any great genre piece is examining something about humanity and using these ultra cool facets and motifs to entice us into watching it or reading it.
All right. Right, what I'm going to do is some of the chat have been putting some questions to you, so I'm going to bring them up and let you go for it at your leisure. Again, chat, just to remind you, if you've been enjoying the vampiric chatter, I have pinned the Kickstarter campaign for Matt and Kelley's Dracula the Impaler Book 1.
2 days to go.
Yep.
Just over. So this is Last Chance Saloon. So please feel free, go click, go support the campaign. Let's grab Alcatraz S299 with a $5. It says, hail, the real BBC. Mr. Jones and Mr. Wagner, do you have a favorite tour issue? Cheers, everyone. See you at the LA Comic Con, Gary, who's not here today.
I always loved the ones where Thor fought him, who eventually became Adam Warlock. I recently picked up a beautiful reissue they just did of Starlin's initial run on Warlock.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite aware of what when I read it when I was young, I didn't connect to what a personal bit of myth making that was for him. He was a post World War I vet when he was doing that. Not World War I, excuse me, Vietnam vet when he was fucking old.
Yeah.
Vietnam vet when he was doing that. And it very much is an assault on society and politicians and religion, all the things that lead to war, glorifying the warrior, but vilifying the war itself. And I quite love those issues.
I loved my favorite Thor was Journey into Mystery 121 to, I think, Thor 125. I believe it was the Hercules and he fight.
Yeah, that was great too. Yeah.
Yes, and that particular run blew me away simply because it examined obviously Hercules' ego, but Thor's how noble Thor was.
Yeah.
And him going back to help the guy who just beat him survive going to hell. As a kid, I didn't see that coming. You know, I thought the story would end, they drag him off to hell or whatever, and that's the end of Hercules. But no, he goes down there. And then they throw in the extra one where Pluto can't stand seeing his realm being destroyed by Thor, who just won't give up. He calls it. He just says, all right. I belong here. You guys can go. And I just found that what great when comics work. That's my example.
Yeah, that was a good run.
Yeah.
Mr. Strange Danger with a $2 says, I just got my limited edition Dracula cover volume 1.
We love Mr. Stranger Danger.
Well, that means that they're down to probably 34 now. What are you down to? Oh no, 26 left.
Oh,
People have been snapping up just 26 of those special black and white covers with the red embossed on the front, or the red shiny front to go. So again, link on the chat. Yorazuna with a $50 says, ciao. I don't normally super chat, but I feel compelled to express my gratitude. Matt, Grendel is without doubt my favorite series, and I thank you for making it truly. Thank you for making something unique, and for that, I will always support you.
Well, thanks very much.
Yeah, nice.
This gets back to the whole thing we were talking about earlier about how you have to keep things interesting for your audience. The only way you keep things interesting for your audience is keeping it interesting for you. And so, I originally did Grendel as the gives me a good chance to talk about the new book.
Yeah.
But I originally did Grendel as a series of backup features in the pages of Mage. And then Kamiko, the publisher at the time, approached me and said, we'd like to do this as a continuing monthly. And at the time, I had never considered doing a monthly series. I was working in very distinct beginning, middle, and end narratives. And I thought, God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to keep this interesting to keep doing a monthly book? And I finally struck upon the idea, I will say greatly inspired by Lee Falk's The Phantom comic strip, that there would be more than one Grendel, that it would be a kind of persona that would move through various incarnations and identities. And so basically I got a chance to reinvent the thing every so often, reinvent it visually, reinvent it thematically, reinvent it narratively. I mentioned the very first version there, Devil by the Deed, that's Batman Grendel 2. Yeah. Devil by the Deed was the original Hunter Rose story arc. And last year was Grendel's 40th anniversary. And
wow.
Yeah. And when I went back to look at that, even I was surprised to discover that original story arc was only 37 pages long. And considering the legacy it spawned, literally decades of material, dozens of characters, thousands of pages of story and art, I thought, well, that's kind of insufficient. So I approached Dark Horse and said, hey, let me redo Devil by the Deed. I'm gonna retell the entire tale top to bottom in the same kind of format, but drawing it now at age 60 as opposed to the young buck I was way back then. And so now it comes out 22nd of this month, 22nd of November, ships to stores. It's called Devil by the Deed Masters Edition, and it's 121 pages of all brand new art and story retelling the tale of Hunter Rose.
Nice. What day? Repeat that date again, Matt?
Say it again.
Can you just repeat the date?
Oh, yeah. It's the 22nd of this month.
22nd. So
22nd November 22nd. It arrives in stores. Yeah, we have both a standard edition and a limited signed and numbered hardcover as well. It's colored by my son Brennan Wagner in the black, white, and red palette that has since over the years become Hunter Rose's motif. And I gotta say, we are both super proud of it. It looks fucking great. This also gives me a little springboard. It was originally meant to be supported by the Netflix show.
No, yes.
Because my initial thought was Dark Horse just recently republished the Grendel omnibus editions, but those are fat. There's 600 pages a piece, and my thought was if somebody is coming to look for Grendel based upon their interest in the show, that 600 pages might turn them off. So we wanted something that was a little more accessible, and thus expanding Devil by the Deed to 120 plus pages. The show, oh, what a bittersweet experience that was.
What can you tell us?
I can tell you that they completely filmed the entire thing and canned it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have all 8 episodes on a Blu-ray.
What do you think of them?
What was the reason?
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I was crushed by the whole experience. It's definitely an adaptation, which it needed to be. It modernizes here and there in ways that I fully supported.
So why did they can it?
Okay, so 2 years ago when this happened, of course, Netflix was a complete fucking dumpster fire, right? Of course, their stock just plummeted. What did it lose 70% of their stock value in the space of a year, something like that. So that led to just a huge wave of managerial purges, and we lost our executive that was in charge of our show, who was the greatest champion of the show the entire time. So it got inherited by some other guy. And, I always use the analogy of, whenever you have a lion pride and a new alpha male comes in, he kills all the fucking cubs from the previous alpha.
Yeah.
And from the beginning, this guy was like, I don't get this show. I don't get it. Why is there, it's a comic book thing. Why is there no superpowers and energy blasts and shit? And why is the main character, a charismatic psychopath? And why is there no great moralization at the end and the good guys win? And it's like all the shit that makes Grendel special, he didn't like because it didn't fit his tiny little view of what comic book movies and adaptations ought to be. So,
but it was already done.
Something already very different, something auteur, something unique, canned because they couldn't see it, and not realizing that if that were out now, it would be the antidote to all the crap that is done.
Our showrunner told us we were just in the wrong fucking place, the wrong fucking time. If we would have been 9 months before or after, we would have been fine.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting anything here, Matt. I'm just saying a thing. Do you remember when Ryan Reynolds leaked out his Deadpool stuff, and it's now spawned a third Deadpool movie because he had a vision? It would be awful, Matt, awful, and I say this sincerely, if somehow that Blu-ray was stolen, ripped, and put online. I would be mortified.
There is a crucial difference here. Ryan Reynolds doesn't own the rights to Deadpool, so if it ever came back to bite him in the ass, it wouldn't hurt him at all, would it? Blu-ray I have, every copy of it is watermarked that says Matt Wagner in the bottom right-hand corner, so there'd be no disguising where the source was. So,
I mean, crime is a horrible thing, Matt.
Crime is horrible.
Crime is a horrible thing. It's not victimless.
As you're just suggesting, I leave my doors unlocked for a couple weeks.
I'm just saying.
It's some little arrows as to where I keep the copies.
It's a cruel world. That's all I'm saying. It's a cruel world, Matt. And who knows what's going to happen out there?
I've seen the first 2, and it is remarkable.
Yeah, I sent Kelley a copy to watch.
Yeah, I'm up to 2. I would be watching it right now, but we're doing this.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. And you told me that. You said this is going to break your heart in 10 minutes, and it did. It was good. It is good, and I can't.
And Netflix is now it's come to a point where it's like, what happens to my rights now? Legally they own it. Period. They are willing to let me take my rights but there's certain restrictions that they're putting on it that really make it complicated to try and get somebody else interested in the property afterwards. It's all just a bunch of dicky lawyer and accounting stuff, you know.
Oh man,
and there's this. So now you know,
it's a fucking bummer, man. Let me tell you,
this very special thing that was the counter to everything you see now as.
Yeah,
and it won't be seen.
Well, that's what I mean. Here, let me bring this super chat up because this links in. High Def 10 with a $20 says, when do you think you guys will see the end? You know, you can say woke, you can just say shitty, you can just say whichever way you want to phrase that. My definition of woke is putting ideology ahead of story and character. That's my personal definition of woke.
I don't think we have a dearth though of good material right now.
No, I don't.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly what you're talking about there, that, you know, these political agendas kind of trump the good story, but there's still plenty of one thing I love to point to is, did you guys see The English? Do you know that series?
No.
So it stars Emily Blunt.
Right.
And it's about it's a Western. It stars Emily Blunt about an English woman who comes to the American West on a trail of revenge for the man who killed her son. And it subverts every expectation you'll ever have. And yet you have this very strong female character, so it would fit into, you know, kind of the agenda of a lot of what this person's referring to there. And yet it doesn't fall prey to that at all. It's magnificent.
Don't you think we've gone so far into the shitty that something like that, they're almost teaching their audience to go, oh god, it's another fucking female lead.
That's the danger you run into, is that you begin this formula, and that it and as soon as people get a whiff of it, they want, like I said earlier, they want something authentic, they want something sincere. No one has a problem with how you do that, but they do have a problem with that being overriding the authentic and sincere part.
Correct.
It's a super complicated issue, because I just I publish on Facebook. I'm a voracious reader of fiction, and I'm not just talking comics. I'm talking prose novels, and I regularly publish a little review of everything I just finished reading. So there was a recent book called Double or Nothing by an author named Kim Sherwood, and it's an approved sequel by the Fleming estate set in the 007 universe, right?
Okay.
And at the beginning of the book, Bond has gone missing, and they don't know if he's dead or captured or brainwashed or whatever. He's just gone. And they deploy these, you know, in the Bond books, you never really see any of the other 00 agents. You know they're there, but you never see them. So they deploy these other 00 agents. And on one level, it's really woke, because they are almost a recipe. You know, there's a woman, there's a gay black guy, and there's a Muslim. And so on that level, the math is just like, oh, come on, this equation is so obvious. At the same time, this author totally delivers a fucking awesome, worthy of Fleming James Bond or 007 adventure. It's brutal, it's fun, it's exciting, giant supervillains with giant supervillain plots. In fact, the supervillain's basically Elon Musk. And it's magnificent. So that's what I mean about how it's complicated. That equation, which initially put me off as I was reading it, the author herself made me overcome my reticence to that, and totally delivered. So,
and I think if the bigger probably is you'll have the something like that, but I think eventually the losing of money and the losing of people will do it, because eventually you have to stay in business. And if you keep making decisions that are telling people not that they'll rage, they'll just walk away, they won't come back, they'll go somewhere else, they'll find,
well, it'll lead to apathy more than anything.
It will. And then they'll move on to the next thing. They'll just move on to the next whatever it is they're interested in. And all of this can be seen as self-inflicted, because you're seeing decisions made not based, as with in Matt's situation, not made based on the actual material, but based on perception. And that is the danger. You have to be unbiased. You have to be authentic in the story you're telling. and then let the rest take care of itself. Let that find people who have a literary ability and say what they want to say, but not at the expense, and certainly not at hectoring your audience. I don't believe in that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
I mean, Matt, I'll be totally honest with you. If you had said to me, there's this Bond book coming out set in a Bond universe with a woman lead, a gay black guy, and a Muslim, and they go up against Elon Musk, I would turn around and walk away.
Yeah, right. And it wasn't at all.
Yep. That whole premise just sounds like, oh God, stop, please.
Yeah. Now on the other side of that, do you know the author Anthony Horowitz?
Yeah.
So he's written 3 books in the Bond universe that are period appropriate with 007 himself. The first one takes place 2 weeks after the events of Goldfinger. The first one is a prequel to Casino Royale, which shows how he got his 007 designation. Third one I just got, I haven't read it yet, but those are terrific, and they don't try to fix or disguise any of the
Now that sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, those are terrific. Those are great. Yeah. There's also here, since we're on the James Bond wagon, have you ever heard of the Young Bond series? There's a series of YA novels which are also period appropriate. They're set in the 30s.
Okay.
It's Bond when he's going to Eton, and it's all his school days, and they too are a fucking blast. You get to see how he develops his love of fast cars, how he first starts to interact with women, how he starts to become a sneak. How he goes up against some Bond-esque villains. He continually gets the fucking shit kicked out of him, which is a real motif in the books all the time. He gets fucked up all the time in the books, Those are terrific too. But again, I too was surprised with how much I ended up liking that the Double or Nothing. It's called the book.
All right, okay. We got Grendel Vivat with a $20. Says, between Kelley and Matt, I'm feeling spoiled for choice recently with both Dracula Volume 1 and Devil by the Deed Master Edition pre-ordered. There you go. Thank you both for many years of great art and stories, with many more to come. Well, this Dracula is Volume 1 out of 4. So this will be continuing on.
We're about halfway done with the second one.
Yep.
Wow. When do you envisage all 4 parts?
About a year between each volume.
Once a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's and we're, Kelley and I are, we're not the flighty sort of creators. We are, this is our fucking job. We sit down and do it.
Yeah.
Very nice to hear that.
What I always enjoy with Matt is the same kind of blue collar aspect to creating something different. You can go in there and have this great vision and auteur look, but you get something on paper and you get it done.
No,
and that's where we work really well together. That's another one of the many reasons I enjoy working with him.
Matt, I've been aware of your work through the Batman Grendel stuff. Kelley, of course, I've been so familiar with your work for decades now. I got nothing but faith in this. I really do.
Lower lip slicker, a man after my own heart.
Yeah, lower lip slicker. Hello. With a $2.
I'm assuming that's a man. I don't want to prejudge.
Well, maybe I've got a modern audience today. You don't know. Lower lip slicker with a $2 is just pledged $129 for Dracula 1. Looks awesome. Yes, it does look awesome.
Thank you.
And that trailer was brilliant, not just because of Kelley's unbelievable artwork, but like you said, the great, that voice actor was superb, by the way. Whoever you picked out to do that, he was wonderful. But of course, he was actually saying Matt Wagner's words from the book.
Yes, he was.
So here's the interesting thing about that. When we first enlisted him, he gave us 2 versions. One as we ended up with there, and the other one with the more familiar kind of Romanian accent.
Yeah.
And we opted for the no accent version because the Romanian accent that we all attribute to being Dracula is in fact Lugosi's version. And that was because Lugosi hardly spoke English at all when he filmed that. He had to learn a lot phonetically. In the book, and I went and did my research, there are 2 instances where Harker talks about how Dracula really doesn't have an accent.
No.
Right.
He talks about, when he first meets him, he said he spoke excellent English with a strange intonation, and I took that to mean he hasn't talked to another living person in probably 50 years.
Yeah. So it's just a little bit affected. His voice might just be, yeah. Here's an interesting one. Or it might not be, but I think it's an interesting one. Daniel Todd, $5 says, would Jim Caviezel be a good Dracula?
Possibly, and he's kind of in his younger days when he was in the Count of Monte Cristo and the Passion of the Christ, a little too young, but now he's put some years on that might some road distance might really make him a good choice.
You ever see Person of Interest at all?
No,
I thought that's a great show.
It's a show. Is he in it?
Yeah, Jim Caviezel plays the lead.
Oh,
and he plays a guy called John Reese, and he teams up with a chap called Harold, and it takes place a little bit after a terrorist incident has happened in America. And so America, the sort of the government's reacting to be more of a surveillance state. And it begins off with Harold, who's he's the tech guy. He's created a machine which works out through the surveillance system when people are in trouble, who's looking like they're going to be in trouble through some means or another, and they become the person of interest. But he needs a muscle to actually get out there and try and save this person, or because you don't know if the person is the person who's going to perpetrate the crime or be the victim of the crime. But the surveillance system's working it out. So it starts off in the first season as being quite procedural, like most American shows, but highly enjoyable. But then the story it really moves into this overarching story of surveillance state and this computer, and how it could be abused and utilized, and how the government is working on its own version. And all of this, and by the end, I was actually quite surprised where they took.
Where do you find that as?
You can get that on Amazon Prime. I believe it's up there. It should be on Amazon Prime for you to watch. But I think that is Jonathan Nolan who got involved in that, and I'm not sure if David S. Goyer is involved as well.
I thought he was. Yeah, I think. Goyer
I think Goyer's involved.
Yeah,
but it was from something that looked like it could just be a procedural, turned out to be a very smart, very clever show. And Jim Caviezel's perfect. It's like, imagine if Batman was Bruce Wayne, sort of thing. It's very clever the way, Caviezel's sort of like that guy. And it doesn't pander, and all the characters are unique and have their own voices, and the stories are mature. There's some very and season 4, you're sort of like, wow, they certainly went places with this one. Yeah. So massive recommend person of interest. If you like Jim Caviezel. Yeah. But I like him I like him.
I like that sounds like a good premise.
I think Caviezel would have made an amazing Batman. I really do. I think he would have.
I love his Count of Monte Cristo. I'm a big fan of that book. The full on massive unabridged book.
Yeah.
The neat thing about the book is it doesn't end the way all the movie versions end. Like,
no, it doesn't.
Revenge does not treat him well. He does not end up happy at the end. He doesn't get the girl. He doesn't get his long lost love. Like I said with Grendel, the use of violence comes back in Blowback, and that happens with him here too.
It's like many things. Magic has a price. All this sort of thing. Normally when you push something, it's returned in kind.
Yeah, right.
Regardless of what that is.
I got about 2/3 of the way through it, and there's a scene where he's talking to somebody about hashish, and about how hashish is like his one great love, about how it's the only thing that takes the absolute fury out of his mind. And he goes on about it at length.
Yeah. Hey, when I'm down in London, if we go to a couple of Turkish restaurants, we get the old pipes, we eat, and then we go outside, we get the old pipes going. Pick your flavor, do like a bit of grape.
Those Victorian times came back.
Yeah. I think if they ever adapted for live action, whether it be film or a series, Kingdom Come, I would say please, Jim Caviezel as Bruce Wayne for that.
Yeah.
Would be excellent. Let's grab Therio, God of Rage, with the $10. Says, how do you guys feel about the OG Tomb of Dracula comics and Marvel's Dracula in general?
You want to start, Joe?
Yeah, I am a big fan of Wolfman and Colin on Tomb of Dracula. I think those Marvel kind of came in late to the game. Not late, but jumped on doing horror in the early 70s, seeing the success that DC was having. And man, they did great. I love Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night, Ghost Rider. And with the Comics Code going away, they really could cut loose in some of those. I have to say, I was buying Tomb of Dracula every month when it came out, and it was so different.
And it's funny, we were talking about the Jack Palance TV version of Dracula earlier. That had just recently aired, and they're getting ready to launch that. So that is the visualization that Colin used for his Dracula. If you look at that Dracula, he has a kind of wide, broad, somewhat flat face, just like Jack Palance.
Yeah, those are good. Those are really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's grab this. Serious Man with a $5. How do you guys feel about Wes Craven's 2000 Dracula trilogy and the choice to make Dracula's origin as Judas Iscariot?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there you go. Give me the chills.
Yeah.
I thought it was shitty.
Athenon with a 20-month. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to. Great stuff as always. Love all of you so much. Renfield is mid at best. Nick Cage is good, but Awkwafina is totally annoying. Awkwafina annoying. This shocks me.
Yeah, I'm with that assessment totally. I mean, I haven't seen Renfield, but I can picture it. I've had some people tell me that Cage has some good moments. But again, I'm just not even going to go to that movie until I'm kind of done with my version. I don't want to piss in the well, you know.
Nope.
Piss in the blood.
Yeah, piss in the blood. Yeah. Eugenio Olivencia with a $5 says, anime Van Helsing Ultimate Dracula working for a secret British organization fighting against the Roman Catholic Church and Nazi vampires.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, I haven't either. That's the first I've ever heard.
That sounds great.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Count me in on that one. Sergi Berengard with a 2 Canadian says, what's your thoughts on Dracula Hotel Transylvania?
Haven't seen Hotel Transylvania, mainly because of my stage of life. My kids were much too old to watch that by the time it came around, so I just never checked it out. Kelley, you seen any of those?
Kids were too old.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. Yeah, but it's again another area that is
another incarnation. Yeah, in every aspect of
every single aspect. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Ubiquitous. It's totally ubiquitous.
Yes. Not even going to go there. I'm going to say DiGiorno Pizza with a $5. It says, how do you do guys like From Dusk Till Dawn? Robert Rodriguez.
Very conflicted opinions about it. You know, people love the sudden switch midway through. It just threw me the wrong way. I was like, make this one or the other. I was totally enjoying just kind of the down and dirty crime thing at the beginning, and then all of a sudden it's vampires. Just didn't fly for me.
Selma Hayek though.
Yeah, no, that's great, but that's not that's just fucking tits, man. That's not not storytelling. Matt, that's not storytelling. I base everything on storytelling.
It's never just tits, Matt. It's never just tits. God, sorry, I'm gonna easy now. Come on, reel it back. Be professional.
Kelley, what about you? Did you like Dusk Till Dawn?
It was okay. I got that it was trying to be a drive-in. Trying to do the drive-in.
Yeah, but you did that much better in Grindhouse, both of them.
Yeah, I actually do, and I think they did it better. So you're right. The switching of the gears wasn't as smooth as it could have been, and so at that point,
not at all.
Yeah, it just dang, it happens. I think if maybe if you spent more time on that, you could do it. I think there was a what is the film with Simon Pegg where he wants to go pub crawl and then
World's End.
World's End, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that kind of got it for me. Like that did a thing like wow, all of a sudden it changed from this kind of shiftless guy hanging on to, you know, weird robot creature thing. And that I like. I mean, that I dug, and it switched gears in the middle. So it can be done. It just wasn't done to me. It wasn't done in Dusk Till Dawn to where I thought it worked as well as it could have.
Okay. Morley, what do you think of Dusk Till Dawn?
I mean, I've always really liked it, but I haven't seen it now in a really long time, so maybe I'd change my mind on a rewatch. But yeah, I remember it's kind of interesting how you can get to a point of saying like the switch is kind of annoying, so mash two movies together. While most people, I think, the take is like it's so shocking and cool to see a film almost subversively do that. I was going to ask, what do you think about like Predator? People often argue that's like 3 films stitched together, like first act, second act, and third act, completely different sort of tones and approaches. Predator being one of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah, except the threat of the Predator is there from the the beginning. You know there's something in the woods that's not right.
Well, you see the ship.
There's zero hint of the vampires. Up until,
you see a spaceship coming.
Yeah,
shouldn't see that. You should never see that.
Yeah.
You get that weird kind of his POV.
Well, actually, I was going to say I'd prefer we didn't see the ship.
Yeah.
It's I love how they reveal the Predator gradually.
Narratively, in that it's supported from the beginning, where there's no support for that shift in Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah,
it's it's literally the first half's a Tarantino movie, the second half's a Rodriguez movie. And if that was their intent, okay, I get it, but just didn't intrigue me storytelling wise. It's more it feels more masturbatory to me that they're just like, oh, your movies are cool too.
Yeah.
I thought Robert Rodriguez did some great stuff back then. Desperado was a remake of La Mariachi. And I have seen both La Mariachi and Desperado, and I thought they're both great. And I loved it. I was a big fan of Dusk Till Dawn personally. I thought he got Clooney in his heyday at the right time, and I did like the switch. I did like the switch because I did enjoy the first part. I did enjoy the the sort of the dynamic between the brothers, and clearly one of them's got the head screwed on, and all that stuff. I really enjoyed. What Tarantino was hearing in his head as opposed to being normal. So when that switch happened, I thought it was I thought it was great. Sex machine. Funny guy, so yeah. To me, it's a film that was there to just entertain you. Don't think too hard. We're mashing up a couple of genres here, and we're seeing what we got. I think it worked.
I absolutely understand why people have that opinion.
Yeah.
If I could ask, I don't know.
Sorry, Mahler, go ahead. Yeah,
I was going to say I didn't want it to be too long of a question, but I'd love to know your if you could have like a top 5 movies from a writing point of view, considering your experience and stuff.
Oh, impossible.
In that case,
too many.
5 of your favorites.
My kids crazy when they were younger. They'd be like, "What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite food? What's your and I'd be like, I like too much shit. I don't have favorites. Tuesday I'm hungry for pasta. Thursday I want steak. And I always used to say to them, look, I have a favorite wife, I have a favorite son, and I have a favorite daughter. Because I only have one of each of those, But, I worked with Tarantino on, I co-wrote the Django Zorro crossover. I wrote the Zorro comic for about 4 years. And the guy that was for Dynamite Comics, and the guy that was the head of Dynamite, Nick Barucci, had been longtime friends with Reggie Hudlin, who was the producer on Django Unchained. And they approached me and they said, hey, we're talking with Quentin about doing a Django Zorro crossover. Would you be interested in co-writing that with him? And I was like, well, that's never going to fucking happen. But yeah, sure, And so I totally forgot about it. About 6 months later, they called me again. And they said, hey, we sent Quentin all of your Zorro stuff, and he loves it, and he wants you to come down to his place next week. And I kept saying to my wife, this is going to fall apart at any fucking moment.
Yeah.
It's going to, anything is going to disrupt this, because I know Quentin's history with these side projects that he talks about all the time, And nope, it totally worked out. I even up until the moment I was pulling up at the gate of his house, I was just like, it's going to be like, oh, sorry, comic book dude, Sam Jackson showed up and I can't make it today,
Sure.
But nope, he rang me through the gate. He met me at the door himself, took me to show me his comic book collection right away. And and we spent 2 days just hanging out at his place and cobbling this story together. And
That's awesome, dude.
And a mixture of sitting out by his pool and again just shooting ideas back and forth, and then going down to his screening room and watching a handful of movies. He loves to watch movies with people when he's just started a new venture like this, so you all get kind of in that same headspace. And
I love Django Unchained. I think it's a fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my god, man! I a friend of mine who was a local reviewer. I live in Portland, Oregon. Took me to a press screening, and we got to the end of it, and I turned to him. I said, "Okay, I'm not a young black man, very obviously, but if I was, that would be my Star Wars. Like I would see that 900 times."
Yeah. That's just a great. It's just a great movie, and you know, we've been so sort of saturated with deep slave movies. You know, it's like the only thing Hollywood seems. They either portray black people as victims or slaves. It's like do something. And at least Tarantino took that genre, and Tarantino'd it. You know, it's very much a Tarantino film
too, because he's taken some grief in the fact that the Kerry Washington character, Django's wife, Brunilda, is just kind of there to be rescued, right?
Okay.
And he said because so Reggie, the movie's producer, is a black man, and Quentin said, yeah, well, in film, black women always have to be strong or sassy. And I didn't want that. I wanted to, afford black women the chance to be the princess that the knight comes and rescues.
Yes. Yeah.
And pulls it off just fine. And I will point out that the very final shot of the film is them riding off together, and you see her pull the rifle out of the side holster and prop it over her shoulder.
Yeah, prop it over her shoulder.
She needed rescued then, but I think she's going to be okay going forward.
I don't think there is anything wrong with a damsel having a damsel in distress. There's nothing wrong. It's been there for hundreds of years. There's a reason why it's stood the test of time. It's not just a male power fantasy. There's also a lot of female attributes to that they want a strong man to come in and save them and rescue them and make them feel safe and secure.
And
it works
Quentin
both
said,
ways.
by this point, black women deserve a shot at that.
Yeah.
I think women in general just deserve to be feminized again.
And,
I think there's been a distinct
and Reggie, when
that.
Quentin had first described that reasoning to Reggie went home and presented it to his wife and her sister, who are strong black women themselves. And he said they were both in tears by the end of the conversation. So he said, "Yeah, I got that. We're good to go. Let's go."
Yeah.
Because I mean, the film, obviously, you have your other protagonist as well, but the film at some point steps that aside, and the development of Django as a character is great. It's come on, it's a great film. If you're giving shit over that, shut up.
I love the.
Somebody was just asking if we're looking forward to the Nosferatu remake.
Oh, yeah, I've moved from the other one to that, but we didn't go into this one. Sorry, Morley, you go ahead first, man.
I was just gonna say that what he says, "Fuck you, Django," that he shoots him, says the D is silent, hillbilly.
yeah.
That's fucking great. Yeah. Awesome. In answer to that, yes, I'm definitely looking forward to the Nosferatu remake.
Me too.
I think Robert Eggers is one of the most unique and significant filmmakers working right now. That said, my dear friend and editor for many years, he's my editor on Trinity and the 2 Batman series I did, the Mad Monk and the Monster Man. Bob Schreck just today posted what appears to be the poster for it. And I got to say, completely underwhelmed. It looked like fan art. In fact, I'd be surprised if it wasn't fan art.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it was, from what I heard. I think it was.
Okay, because it did not look good at all.
Yeah.
But that gives me hope then. Because, again, I thought The Witch was fucking magnificent. Lighthouse was a little too odd for my taste. Just didn't match my taste, but I appreciated what it was. But The Northman was fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eggers has a really strong style. He's one of someone to keep an eye on, sort of thing.
And very uncompromising. He does what he's going to do,
There's a couple people working right now. After talking about Midnight Mass, I assume do you follow like Flanigan's work?
Yeah, I love Flanigan. We just watched Fall of the House of Usher, which I thought was brilliant. Yep. There again, not so much about the scares, about something else, an examination of the opioid crisis and the the entitled bullshittery of the 1%, you know.
Yeah.
And he pulls it off so well. And I loved how he was able to integrate like almost every other famous Poe story into that story, you know.
Oh, have you heard, like, that's interesting to talk to you about that, because I've spoken to many people who kind of despise the show for not understanding Poe's work. So,
well, I'm not surprised they don't understand Poe's work because they haven't probably read Poe.
Yeah.
Well, so, sorry, these are people who are like, I love Poe, and the Flanigan has misunderstood Poe's like spirit of his writing and stuff. I'm not familiar enough with Poe's work to make a claim either way, but I was curious for your take on that.
Oh yeah, I thought he was hitting it. I mean, you know, I don't know, Kelley, what would you say about that?
I would say that there's it's a love letter to Poe.
Yeah.
I mean, he clear. I mean, there's so many different interpretations to Poe's stories that it's hard to say. What did Poe mean with the fall of the House of Usher? What did he mean with the Mask of the Red Death? There's a general feel, but once you get into Poe scholarship, there's big debate on the meanings of a lot of his stories, in terms of what not that he was being difficult, but that he was very much a man of literature. So his meanings and his thoughts, his what he wanted to get across. It's why we're still talking about him. You know?
So in which case, then that means Mike Flanigan deserves his own interpretation of it.
Right.
So
I would say, for me, when you get into the Cask of Amontillado, which to me is one of the most frightening stories anyone's written, it's from the point of view of a man telling you something that happened 50 years ago. And he's still enjoying it as if it had just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we never know what happened to him. We don't know if nothing happened to him. I mean,
I love seeing Flanigan, much like David Lynch and Wes Anderson, you know, has his troupe of actors that he uses over and over.
Yeah.
Really good at mixing them up so they're not playing the same roles over and over. You know? And my God, in that Fall House Usher, I thought that was a career high for Carla Gugino, who I normally just really love, and I thought she just knocked it out of the park.
Completely agree. Bruce Greenwood as well.
Always. Yeah. Oh, Greenwood. God damn, is he not the voice of corporate America? That the way he spoke his lines was just like such boardroom talk. You know, it was amazing.
Do you know that all of his stuff is reshoots?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, they had Frank Langella, but he got booted because of something he did on set that I don't think they've released, like what he did. But,
I heard. Yeah.
They shot half of
no loss because I thought he was magnificent. Yeah.
Okay, you're right. I forgot Langella was.
Yes.
You're right. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, it's amazing because I found that out after I saw the show, and I was like, Greenwood stuff is reshoots. He's like the core of the show.
Yeah, that's really
amazing.
shocking. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really cool.
I forgot all about. You're right. That's pretty impressive now that you say that.
And I thought that like Greenwood, I've seen him in so much stuff, including Flanigan's work. A lot of the time, a supporting actor, and I've always liked him. And I was really happy to see he got like a big spotlight in this show. So much to show off.
Yeah.
Yes, he's seen Farscape, of course. But yeah, I was really happy with the show. But I was just going to say on the note of adaptations, Flanigan's got a bit of a history now that people are a little bit weary with him because of. I don't know if you watched Hill House, Haunting of Hill House. I really loved that show. But from what I hear, it's barely adapted the Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, it is barely adapted. Yeah, it's definitely.
They took the names, but it's not.
Okay, but then on the other hand of that equation is Dr. Sleep, which I think is a fucking magnificent movie, and again a career high for Rebecca Ferguson, and she's got a lot of career highs. And
I would love to be career high inside of Rebecca Ferguson.
And he pulls off the incredibly delicate balance of making it a sequel to an adaptation of the book and an adaptation of being a sequel to the Kubrick movie. He makes it both at the same time, and
almost an impossible task, I would say, right?
And he pulled it off with flair, you know, and really a great compelling approach and story. I think I prefer it to the King novel, truthfully, which I find there's a joke that King doesn't know how to end his novels, and I find that one kind of falls into that pit.
Yeah. Quickie Gary's Beard Crabs with a $2 Van Helsing or Angel Season 5's Wesley.
Never watched Angel, so I couldn't tell you.
Season 5 Wesley is my favorite character. So.
It's always going to be Van Helsing.
And is he talking about the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing or the Peter Cushing Van Helsing?
If we're saying who's going to win in a fight, it's probably going to fucking be Van Helsing, but Wesley has a shotgun, I guess.
Toasty with the most eat, Celine from Underworld. You've got the whole vampire thing.
When you ever saw the first Underworld, didn't everything was just too blue?
It's the Underworld movies are goofy. I have a bit
they
of
are goofy. They're a lot of fun because they're goofy. Yeah.
Well, I love Bill Nye in it.
It's Bill
his
Nye.
Victor is one of my favorite vampires. He's awesome.
That's just Bill Nye, though. He's great. The NYC geek with the $10 Dracula and Van Helsing have had such an influence in pop culture that even advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, there were Ravenloft counterparts, Count Schwalt von Salvich and the Hunter van Richten.
Stoker should have got a piece of the action because they just transported those two over to that. So
except Kelley, it's public domain. Let's assure everybody.
I know.
Yeah. In our own fucking defense.
Yes. Well, I would like to think that we weren't doing Stoker so much. I want Vlad. It's Vlad. He's farther removed from us.
Okay. Quick reminder, folks. For fuck's sake, cancel your Disney Plus. Here we go. Eric Bailey with a $5. A devastating combination of destruction would be a vampire Chuck Norris. However, the Norris would be able to cure Dracula if he was bitten by him. I think that's true.
As like an antidote.
Yeah.
An anti-venom.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Who would cure Dracula if they bit him? Anyone. This is like anyone on the planet, anyone that exists.
It's hard for me to answer these because, again, I'm so colored by the way we're doing him. And, part of our approach is the fact that in the novel, we see precious few other vampires. They are all women, by the way.
Yeah.
So he is absolutely a predator.
Yeah.
I just call him based.
But he is so obviously and distinctly more powerful than any other vampire we see. Sure. The vampire women in the castle, he obviously has them completely under his thrall. Mm-hmm. And Lucy, the one other vampire we see turned once he gets to London, seems more in the mold of the revenants that I was speaking about earlier.
Yeah.
She has a cognizance, but she's very much just kind of a creature of hunger, and an impulse.
Oh, I got a question for you.
We answer that. We show why he's more powerful than other vampires.
What did you think of The Hungering?
The Hungering? What do you mean?
The film.
The Hunger.
You mean
the Hunger? Is it not sorry, The Hunger?
Well, that's a continuation of the lesbian vampire motif, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, the opening sequence with fucking Bauhaus singing Bela Lugosi's Dead as David Bowie and Catherine Deneuve are hunting through a nightclub for their victims.
Yeah.
Really, really, really compelling.
Yeah.
And I was in art school at the time that movie came out, and all of the girls that I had crushes on wanted to go see that movie. So I saw it a bunch.
Well, the novel,
lesbian vampire is an important genre to keep alive.
Whitley Strieber is pretty good, and it has a very different ending than you'd expect from a vampire novel. Very different. And I think, though the film is different from the book, they're both excellent, and I thought Tony Scott captured it.
And Dick Smith's makeup on David Bowie is just award winning.
I loved all the caskets up in the attic.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's really.
I mean, once he gets to be, the problem with aging makeup is that as a person ages, they lose flesh. You know what I mean? Their muscle structure starts to collapse. Aging makeup, you are adding on top of flesh, so it's hard to continue it. Now, they did a great job with him aged 20, 30, 40 years. When finally he's aged almost 100 years, he looks like he has a pumpkin head. You know what I mean? It's swollen. So it's just a testimony to how difficult that is to do without any CGI. But pulled it off really well up until that.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
Let's grab Zale with a $5. Says Matt and Kelley seen Castlevania on Netflix. I know it's more focused on Dracula's henchmen, creatures, and Trevor Belmont. But what did you guys think of it? If you saw it?
I actually liked it. I think the first 2 seasons, and whenever
is that animated? Is that
Yeah.
animated?
Yes.
and I did like it, and I thought it had a lot of verve to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Crit Nature with a 10 Swiss. How do you guys feel about Netflix's Dracula? The first episode had a great representation of Dracula with an intriguing atmosphere, but after that, the writers stopped trying and it became a joke.
I would argue the opposite, that they tried too hard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I would.
There were still things I liked in that final episode. There was stuff I liked in the second episode as well. But they were trying too hard with an agenda of some kind.
It was, and it probably failed on the premise that I'm a fan of what Gatiss will do, and that he's a fan of things. He does great M.R. James adaptations at Christmas that I think are quite good. In fact, he just had done the Mezzotint. I think the last one he did was the Mezzotint. It was terrifying. And a really good take on it on MRJ. I didn't know how you'd film that, and he did it. But with this, I had high hopes that he was going to do something, and he did. At certain times, you go, "That's pretty good," or "That's pretty creepy."
There was good stuff throughout.
Yeah, and so
it's a touchy thing when you bring Dracula into the modern day. It's really tough to.
It is.
It
is.
And I thought that's where they kind of fell down.
Yeah. And I think Matt's right. Tried too hard rather than just let the character do its thing.
Mm-hmm. But the second episode with him on the boat, I thought there was a lot of good shit in that. There was it was certainly not the way it unfolds in the novel, but as we've said, almost no screen adaptation unfolds the way it does in the novel.
True. Yeah. Limited time, limited. So it's Bogham with a 25 Romanian. Cheers for Romania, House of Dracula.
Hey, great.
I'm telling you, trying to make the people from Romania happy with this. That's my goal. I don't know. They're never asked how do they feel about how Dracula's treated or anything like that. I mean, so in back of my mind, I'm going, okay, this is for the people of old Wallachia.
Yeah, you guys. I was talking earlier about on another interview. I discovered this movie from 2018. It's a Turkish film called Vlad the Impaler.
Okay,
and in it, he's basically Darth Vader. He's the evil fucking warlord enemy of the Muslim people, right? And there's like a Muslim super team of warriors who assemble like the Justice League. And they each have a special like battle style, and it's it's just like, wow, that's a cool take on it.
Yeah. Although what Darth Vader's got against Muslims, I'll never know. Birthday
only
freak.
If they are rebel Muslims.
Birthday Freak 67 with a $10. Hey, Matt and Kelley, have you seen or heard of the manga Hellsing? How do you feel about Auckland being a regenerated Dracula who is contracted by Helsing's daughter against Yahtzees and the Catholic Church? Didn't we? We had I think a question similar to that earlier with the same. No,
reference. I've been wanting to. I've had people tell me about this version, and I do want to see it. And one of my kids reads manga, so I'm going to see if he can find it for me.
Tereo, God of Rage with the $10 is just back the $125 tier as well. You guys got me hyped. Also, love the Thor issues where he fights Varney, Dracula, and vampires spread out issue number wise, but I dig it. Thor's my favorite hero. And just a little checksy poo. You've gone up to 216,000 on the campaign.
Great.
Wow.
So chat, massive props to you.
Thank you.
Link at the top of the chat if you're interested in checking out their upcoming Dracula Impaler book 1. There's only 2 days left of the campaign, so don't miss out. I thought I was going to answer a question about this earlier, but I thought this might pop up. So here we go. Humble Dirt Merchant with a $5. Van Helsing versus Jack Crow from John Carpenter's Vampire. Who wins?
I fucking hated John Carpenter's Vampires.
I hated that film as well. I thought it was
especially when the absolute roaring heights of earlier Carpenter films. You know, it's just like, really, this is what he's come to.
It was like if John Carpenter was given a CW show. It kind of felt like that sort of downgrade from what he's done to.
I actually tried to read the novel to see if what went wrong. I couldn't make it through the novel either. It was not.
Oh wow!
Oh, really, Matt? You couldn't get through it? That's not. You read everything.
I do, but I can tell pretty quick whether I'm going to continue or not.
Okay. Roaring Still Media with a $10. Hail, Kelley and Matt, all-time champs and legends, both of you. Kelley is in my top 3 artists of all time, and Matt's Shadow, Year One, made me a fan of that character. Can't wait for the Impaler. Cheers. Of course, Grendel coming out on the 22nd.
Yeah.
22nd of this month.
I'll do a little more self-promotion there. If you like Shadow Year One, I did 2 other Shadow things. I did a 5-issue series that I also wrote. I just wrote Year One, but I did a 5-issue series that I wrote and drew called The Death of Margot Lane. Ooh. And then, of course, we did a crossover with Grendel versus the Shadow.
Yeah.
There you go.
That I also wrote and drew. Both of those colored by my son, Brennan Wagner.
Yeah, that was good.
And they've also stuck another $5 super. Got to ask, is Kelley available for custom commissions? If so, how do we get them?
Eventually, I will.
Love you guys. Great work.
Yeah. Certainly, they can always contact me through Twitter or Facebook or whatever.
Yeah. There you go. Get on it. Get on it. Big ups to Jesus Davila with dropping a quick 10.
Yeah.
Let's grab another. Lots of horror talk. This is really good, actually. Really enjoying this.
Bring it on. We love it.
Yeah.
Kryptonian Jedi with a $2. I just pledged for the hardcover, and I cannot wait. Excellent. What's your first thought with a 5 Canadian? Question for the panel: if Dracula is based on the real life Vlad the Impaler, shouldn't Dracula have a Romanian / Turkish accent?
We addressed this a little bit earlier.
Yes.
No, twice in the book, Jonathan Harker talks about how good Dracula's English is.
Yeah, he made a point to learn it.
Yep, he makes a point to learn it.
Yep.
Dracula himself says, "I don't speak English all that well," and Harker objects. He says, "No, you speak it very well."
Yeah.
And the first time he mentions it is that Dracula speaks excellent English with a strange intonation. Yeah. Which, again, as I said earlier, to my mind means he just hasn't spoken to a living human being in probably 50 years or so.
And we're not even handling that aspect of him in ours. It's that's down the road.
Yeah.
Kalioth with a $5 says Helsing's Ultimate is the standard for vampires. Nazi occult and religious violence of Catholicism versus Britain. Your jaw will never leave the floor.
Me too. I've heard
hearty endorsement. Yeah.
Okay,
so let me clarify again real quick. Helsing is manga. Is that what I should be looking for?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
From what I can gather, yeah. Stepmon's Dream with 150 Danish. Netflix Castlevania is a must watch.
It's a lot.
Here we go again. Fading fast, £10. Helsing's Ultimate.
Oh, here's the opposing view.
Oh, mostly. Yeah, here's the opposing element. It's mostly superficial, and it's so edgy it borders on parody. This is coming from someone who has Berserk as their favorite thing. Sorry, chat, had to be said.
There you go.
Fighting Torque.
Can't please everybody. Nothing pleases everybody. Kelley and I, between us, have 80 years in the comic book industry, and if there's one thing we've learned, can't please everybody.
No.
And so you end up, the only thing you can do is please yourself.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, not trying to start a fight, but is there anything you two kind of disagree on in Dracula's interpretation and the way he should be? Is there anything
in what we're doing together?
Yeah.
No, not in our creation. I don't.
No, I think.
Is there some Dracula thing you like that I don't? I can't remember. We are so in sync with
I think none of the females should have anything less than a 36 double D, but that's just me.
No, because all the things that Matt wanted in vampire stuff, I wanted, which I think most people do anyway. That's why we come to it. But no, I think when we're working together, there are times that we'll try to make something sharper. We'll try to get to something, be clearer, or maybe present it better. And in that regard, because, like I said, I had been such a fan of his work. You trust someone because I know he does it to himself. So if he says this panel here or that page there, we need to tweak or do, yeah, that's fine. But ultimately, it's because I agree with that view of the character. And
for me, it's always I keep telling people that in my role in this project is I'm the storytelling bitch.
Yeah,
I'm the anytime I go to Kelley, this part isn't working. It's always due to storytelling. It was the same with Jose's coloring.
Yeah.
Jose's coloring was great, but I go, okay, wait, nope. 2 panels before this happens, we have to, blah blah blah.
But that being said, it's very organic working relationship. So so there's been things that have come out of this that was the sum of us, not one or the other.
Yeah,
and that's what great comics do.
We've known each other like 35 years. It felt like when we started this, it felt like we'd already been working together 25 of those years.
Sure, sure. Yeah. You kind of got that. Because, I mean, to me, Dracula, it's very primal. Yeah. You're dealing with very basic primal instincts: feeding, hunger, lust, sex. There's the self-preservation.
Cruelty.
Yeah, cruelty. Yeah. There's it's very primal. Sort of survival of the fittest elements to that, and so they're great things to play with, and
he's uniquely alone.
Yes, there's a superficiality to his relationship.
I don't want to say a whole lot more than that, but especially in our version,
he's uniquely alone, and I think that makes him interesting for a lot of people. I mean, obviously, there's people who in certain incarnations will enjoy the whole aspect of vampirism until you actually have to do it, and then it's disgusting. And there's a fascination and fear of blood itself. If you go give blood for a blood test, a lot of people faint. They're ready for you to faint, and even the people who say they aren't going to faint. So it's everyone understands their mortality is tied up.
I'm the guy that's always looking at the tube going,
Matt's like, let me see how it works,
Look at how it spurts. Oh, it's kind of thick and glaucous.
Drink more. Yeah, drink more water, Matt. You got to drink more water.
Get those thinners in. Josh Kelsey, big ups to Josh. He's a good man. Grand Admiral Adam with a 10-month membership says, how about the movie Shadow of the Vampire?
Is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like it.
Of fun.
Yeah,
great cast. Malkovich, I think, kind of, everybody talks about Defoe as the Max Schreck vampire. I think Malkovich almost steals the show from him as the very kind of high-strung and exacting and passionate.
And anything, I mean, he anything to get it on camera. I love that. He'll let his crew get eaten to get that shot. That's great.
Gary's Beer Crabs again with a $5 says Underworld was cool because they made the OG vampire Corvinus, who was a real world rival of Vlad the Impaler.
Corvinus.
Corvinus.
Bill Nye would say it as well. Because Victor, Thomas, I forget all the names, but they had like OG vampires, werewolves, like the king of them, and then the virus, so to speak, spread, and they were in their coffins and stuff. There's loads of cool pieces of lore from the Underworld sort of IP, but as far as I remember, it got goofier as it went along. And they spoiler alert, Bill Nye doesn't make it past the first film, and they clearly regretted that. In post, they made him come back in flashbacks, and then they made him come back in a prequel movie. And this is like, you guys.
No, it was just good comics. That's how it felt to me when I first watched it. It was just a good comic book. Yeah.
Lower lip liquor again. Lower lips liquor with a. It's going for both of them, not just one. Multitasking. With a $2 like the movie Daybreakers, a bite would cure you.
I have not seen Daybreakers. I keep meaning to. It's streaming wise, you got to pay for it, so I just haven't taken the bite, so to speak. But I keep meaning to watch that. Yep.
Shake from the Hunger Team with a $5 says, I just backed the project.
Thank you, sir.
Kickstarter, folks. Link. I have pinned the link at the top of the chat. So, if you've been curious, you want to check it out.
I have a question for all three of you and for all of chat, essentially. Just let me know. Who do you... This is kind of interpreted your own way in terms of how you'd answer it. But if it was vampires versus werewolves, which do you find as lore like the more interesting, the more potential? Which one do you like more? That sort of
I
idea.
like vampires. That werewolves are a little one note. Now that said, there's a really terrific. My favorite werewolf book is by a British author named Glenn Duncan, and it's called The Last Werewolf. And it was so popular, he later wrote 2 sequels to it, and it eventually involves kind of the war between werewolves and vampires in a much better way than I think the Underworld films did.
Yeah.
But the first one's great.
Well, in my head, wolves always serve vampires. I know that they do that, but they always serve the vampire. That's I always liked the old Lugosi film where his familiar is a werewolf. Return of the Vampire is I dug that, and it was just done without saying anything. There's a guy, he's a werewolf, and I thought that's good.
I like werewolves. You can bring in the sort of Jekyll and Hyde aspect.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I love werewolves.
Because vampires are vampires all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I love werewolves.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you on. I prefer vampires, and I find vampires just fascinating. Like there's so many different versions you can take. Because one of the ones I guess we haven't fully talked about, kind of, is like they're trying to escape death forever. Like the immortality leads you to becoming a monster, and the aristocratic sort of like posh and intelligent and authoritative, but also they can, so to speak, almost wolf out and be like horrifying creatures that will just eat your blood, sort of thing. Like I love that juxtaposition.
I like that you also can take it that they're cursed with immortality, and even though they wish to die, they can't do it because the curse keeps them going. But it's the great Stoker line. There's some things worse than death,
Yeah,
and it's to live. What that's the old biblical curse, right? Immortality.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why heaven is the.
Yeah, it's so you think these guys. I mean, that's the thing I like. What we're doing is he's now got to deal with this.
You just jumped up another $1,500, 217,500 now. That's
great. Thanks.
Thank you.
There's a hunger for Dracula, maybe. I don't know.
I think, to be honest, right, without trying to like stick dicks up asses here, I think there's a hunger for quality, and I think there's a hunger to hear what you guys have been saying today. I mean, everything that's been said today from you guys isn't just knowledgeable, but it's passion and it's care and it's attention and it's detail, and this is our audience. This is us. This is who we are. More than
like Matt said,
the audience.
We did this on spec just because he had a great idea, and I loved the idea, and I just wanted to see it on paper. And I knew somewhere it's going to show up. Yeah. I knew it was going to show up somewhere. I just wanted it to be him and me until we got that all worked out. And like he said, we're in this, like Dracula, we're in this new world that we had to figure out how do you do that with crowdfunding and all that. But I always felt that the strength of what he had written and what it was pulling out of me, it will register with people when they read it. I'm desperate for that, that it is it's uncompromised.
Here this is a good opportunity to trot around our bragging rights here.
Sure.
When we first announced this on Twitter, I got a response from Leslie Klinger, who is acknowledged as one of the world's foremost Dracula scholars. He's written a bunch of just exhaustively annotated volumes over the years. He did a really fabulous, fully annotated Sherlock Holmes, The Complete Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. He did the latest annotated version of Dracula. He's done annotated Frankenstein, Jekyll and Hyde, H.P. Lovecraft. Guy knows his shit.
Yeah, he does.
And he commented on our initial tweets that, this sounds fascinating, very exciting. And so I contacted him and said, Leslie, man, we would love to show you the book. I have your annotated Dracula, and I highly respect what you do. And we'd love to show you the book. And, if you want to give us a quote, a blurb, that would be awesome. Just love to share. And he came back with this just glowing review that just felt like we had gotten an A+ in Draculology, Dracula 101.
Well, Matt had to worry more than me. I'm just drawing it. Matt actually did the research.
Yeah. Did you get everything right, Leslie? Please.
If he didn't, I was going to let Matt hear it and say, "Well, I held up my end."
But you're not talking anyone out of the theater, but that's what we want. Quality, we want the quality. We want the passion. We want the lore. These are all things which nerds, geeks, we all give a toss about. So to I mean, Kelley, you've been on the show a couple of 3 times now, and your work speaks for itself because it's so visual. Matt, you're the wordsmith, and that's a little bit more difficult to translate to an audience. That's why when you see that trailer and you hear that voice actor and you get those words going, and then when you going through your process, that you've gone through and the knowledge that's behind that just puts so much credence on something for people to get excited about and get involved with. So yeah, I mean, I got absolutely no doubt about this when with the 2 names attached to it. It's just like this is going to be something special, and I'm very excited for this to come out. I really am. Kenny Justice with a $2. Helsing, Father Anderson was such a badass. Hey man. Jay with a $5. Helsing is manga, and Helsing Ultimate is the anime counterpart.
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay. Sourcing is out there. Cannibal the Dragon with a 1 month membership says, what do you think think Dracula would think of what is going on in the world today? How would he fit into today's society? I would. Can I? I'll just start the ball rolling.
Your 2
I
cents.
totally would see him as a politician.
Probably so. I mean, certainly that's the approach that Kim Newman takes in his Anno Dracula series, which is the counterpart to Stoker. In that one, the British heroes do not defeat him, and he ends up marrying Queen Elizabeth after Prince Albert dies. And,
Okay.
And basically, not Queen Elizabeth,
Victoria.
Queen Victoria, excuse me, yeah. and kind of basically taking over the world. I certainly think he'd be aimed at it. In another sense, he might find the complexities of the modern world vexing in a way that would just piss him off. I don't know if any of you watched the latest adaptation on, is it Netflix? Or I think it's on FX, of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire.
No.
It's quite good. So there's, in her books, there's always a distinctly overriding homosexual element to the relationship between the vampires. Lestat and Louis, you get the feeling that they're lovers. In this, it's very overt, and it's set in the 1920s as opposed to colonial days. And Louis, the vampire being interviewed, is black. So he's a triple outsider. He's a vampire, he's black, and he's queer. And the setup is that the interviewer from the original book has found him again years later, and is interviewing him again in the aftermath to get more of the story. And Louis is now living in what are those fucking balloons? Louis is now living in that giant. What's that giant tower in Dubai?
I know what you're talking about. The one that they did on
the one that Tom Cruise dropped out of. So, part of me thinks like maybe that's what Dracula would do somehow. Just sequester himself at the top of the world and watch the petty humans go through all their fucking bullshit. Like he sequestered himself in his castle.
I always thought he'd work behind the scenes. Because that he would be smart enough to realize that
some battles you can't win.
Yeah, and that he would also be working towards where he could make himself known to everyone. He would have to be working those pieces to the time to where he would be in charge, because his ego will not allow otherwise.
That's why I think policy, I
mean,
he would still be just incredibly manipulative in many
because
many
first and foremost, he's a great strategist warlord. And he's got to play the power politics of the church, the Turks, and the Boyars all at the same time. And
yet I wonder how he would approach that in regards to the fact that now in the modern world there are weapons that could destroy a huge amount of the world. So he's as a strategist, he would be faced with, how do I work this? He doesn't want to destroy a lot of his food source. We kind of take that approach in the book a bit, in the second book, in that a little bit of spoiler here. In that he's not, he has learned to control his hungers because he realizes he could work his way through the humans can't reproduce as fast as he can prey on them. You know,
Sure.
so he has to kind of hold back and be selective in when and how he feeds. You know.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
There would be big people. There would be big people farms in his world. Man.
Yeah, we think so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, you could go down some dark routes. I mean, I could see him operating, you know, far eastern Russia, camps.
Well,
you know,
I think Hammer did it.
and
Hammer did
using
it well. That he didn't want to live
religion
anymore.
or something to get people in there, ethnic, you know, something, which we have seen before. You know, you got that element that you could just see him.
Yeah, I mean, he's
making
obviously not opposed to ethnic cleaning. We saw him doing it.
No, I think Hammer, the Hammer Films people did a good version where he doesn't want to live anymore, but his arrogance and his ego won't allow him to be destroyed.
Yes.
So what he's going to do is kill the whole world, right? So he won't have anything to feed on, and that will kill him. And I thought that's pretty Vlad the Impaler arrogant at that point. He's went insane now, but that's his solution: is kill everybody, and then I'm the last thing standing.
Let's go. Sorry, just seen something coming up. It's quite funny. Jack Hallows with a $10. Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust was a very good story and a recommend.
I haven't. I read some of the Vampire Hunter D stuff in the early days. I haven't read it in a long time. I you know, people have been recommending manga here a whole lot. Manga has never truly connected with me. That's just about all I have to offer on that.
Feyre Samra with a $5 says, not much of a comic book reader, but I couldn't resist picking up that foil hardcover.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, boys, you're down to 10 now. Yeah. Let's have a look. Oh my lordy, let's have a quick countdown.
Ferrier, I will say there's nothing comic book artists and creators like better than when they bring a new reader into the fold. You know?
Sure.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're down to a dozen. You're down to 12 limited edition Dracula book hardcovers.
Because I've seen it happen so often. You know, people that didn't grow up reading comics, like all four of us obviously did, and yet when you can hit them with that right comic, okay, Mahler didn't. You can hit them with that right comic. All of a sudden, you'll see the addiction take hold. They want more. They want that experience.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah,
well,
it's
such a private thing, and that's what is cool about it. It's private. It's unique. The voices that they speak with, they're in your head. It's all. That's what kind of makes it, and it's highly acceptable. You get a more eccentric kind of experience out of it. The people making it are usually the readers are. I certainly was when I'm reading them, so it's more fun.
Hey, guys, I got somebody coming up to my door here. I'm going to have to hop off for about 15 minutes, maybe.
We're going to do a couple of these and wrap. So if you wanted to, you could just give a little bit of a
come back when you can.
Do you want me to wrap up, or
you can either wrap up or probably wise to give a thing just in case we are done by time.
If I don't end up coming back, just everybody, thanks so much for your support. Obviously, if you've been watching, and as is saying there, Kelley and I are obviously like completely devoted to this project, and we're insanely proud of it, and we can't wait for everybody to read it. And if you're at all on the fence, we only got 2 more days. Go check it out.
Two.
Yeah, that's a great story. Here, I got another cool story to add to that, and then I really got to go. I just found out the other day, contrary to what modern cinema would tell us, women really weren't on the battlefield in the old days very much.
Yeah,
no.
Except in the aftermath, when they were sent into the battlefield to count the enemy soldiers that had fallen, right? And of course, they couldn't drag the bodies out by themselves to do a full count, so they had a big sack they would wear, and they would lop off the hands and throw the hands in there, and that became known as a handbag.
Yeah.
Wow.
And on that note, I got to roll, fellas.
I thought you were going to say hand job.
Okay. So hang on. I might be able to come back here in just like a minute. So
all right.
Sure. I'll just I'll stick you in the back.
You're not going to get rid of me, Az.
Yeah, no, it's good. Matt's in the back. He's not gone. He's just in the back.
I am never. You can't get rid of me.
I don't want to get rid of you.
Okay.
Kelley. I don't want to get rid of you.
Okay.
But let's bring the missus in because Lynn Jones with a $5 says, as I've seen them, which I imagine is the Bobs in the book, you're in luck. Not only will the females meet your expectations, you'll get a full view to judge for yourself.
Well,
I'm a connoisseur.
Hey, I'm only drawing what I was told to draw.
You just
and if you embellish at any point, that's just
oh my
nature.
God. It's well, why did you come to Hammer Films in the old days, Az? What was the big were the two big reasons?
Yeah. I mean, the Hammer Films were with the you were going there for beautiful ladies.
Yes.
With curvaceous bodies that you lusted after.
Well, Matt did not disappoint in that area.
There you go.
Is that Kelley? That's your Lynn? Lynn's piping in there.
Oh, here's a great one actually, because this is kind of pushing it to where we are today. Eddie Brock with a 2-year affinity. Thoughts on Marvel's vampires: Blade, Morbius, Dracula.
Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier, how much we liked the Wolfman and Colin Dracula. And of course, that's where Blade was introduced.
Yeah.
Morbius, there was, we were talking about the comics code a little bit earlier. For years, you were not allowed to have full-on vampires and werewolves. Kelley was talking about how when the code's grasp started to be broken by Marvel in the 70s, all of a sudden Marvel went full on with, Son of Satan and Ghost Rider and Werewolf by Night.
Lilith.
Their first introduction was Morbius, and that's why he was called the living vampire, so that he was distinguished from being a real vampire, and the comics code wouldn't get upset.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fucking weird.
And they I've had the good fortune to know guys from that period, worked with Mensch and Ween and Steve Englehart well, and they all jumped at it when that happened.
Yeah.
I think the Curtis Black and White publications too, Matt. They are real. They even go further. Where you get Neil Adams did some great stuff with Dracula and Solomon Kane, and they're pretty explicit.
Yeah, and to wrap that back a little bit to something I was talking about earlier, when I was at Tarantino's place, so he had just been to the San Diego Con, and he had come home with a stack of maybe 50 of those Curtis publication, the Marvel oversized black and white mags. So like Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, Dracula Lives, Tales of the Zombie, and that was my jam back in the day. So we spent a lot of time just reminiscing about.
I always love that very quietly. Martin Scorsese loved those Curtis magazines too, and he throws one at the end of Goodfellas. You can see they're reading one of the zombie magazines that they had done. But he had loved them too. So
the funny thing about that was
different.
I said to Quentin, because you know how recognizable Quentin is, right? I mean, he's just famous as a personality himself, not just as a director. And I said, wait a minute, you were at the San Diego Con? How the fuck did you walk around and not get mobbed?
Yeah.
And he was wearing a Mexican wrestling mask.
Nice. Yeah. Very well done.
But he did it the right way, Matt. He went and bought and dug through the bins and looked for it. That's how you get comics. It's the fun of the hunt. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. That's the best. That's the most. Sure, we buy them, in a shop or maybe online.
Send a guy out, just go get me whatever I want. But I like the fact you go and you dig through the bins, and my wife Lynn has gotten into buying comics, romance stuff, and she loves digging for those things. And you find that issue, and I go, it's like Matt's thing, the smell of it. There's certain aspects to this that they're wonderful.
Right? Yeah. I mean,
well, that he puts a letters page in the back of his book. I still dig letters, a physical letters page.
I
always used to, when I read, my comics, always would read the letter page. That was part of the process.
Oh,
Matt, did you ever write?
And plus, you just felt a connection to fellow readers,
Did you ever write a fan letter to a book, Matt?
No. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't want to say fan letter. I sent Michael Gilbert a drawing of Mr. Monster one time, which he ran in his fan letters page. I didn't really intend it as a fan letter.
Yeah.
And I did a drawing of Nexus that I sent to Steve Rude, and they also ran in their fan letters page.
Oh.
So, yeah.
I like that.
Crit Nature with a 5 Swiss. In the show Penny Dreadful, Dracula was portrayed as the brother of the devil. Okay. It was an interesting concept, in my opinion. Also, great show, especially season 1. Yeah,
I only watched about half of season 1. I didn't. Did you watch more than that, Kel?
Yeah, I enjoyed the first season, but what happened to me was, I thought they were going to go into different areas and do certain different things, and it kind of got off the monster track, and that they're alone, and that, that universal thing. But when it worked well. I loved what's his name? Rory Kinnear.
Rory Kinnear.
Yes, he was the standout to me. He
Who
actually
did he play?
nailed Rory Kinnear played the monster.
Frankenstein. Yeah.
Oh, he played the monster. Oh, yeah. And I thought that was a neat portrayal. Yeah.
Yes, and I liked that. In fact, it started to be where I wanted the show to be him and Victor, because that was interest. That was very interesting.
Rory Kinnear.
That's always my point when you have these team up things like that, where you try and squeeze all.
Well, they're trying to do the old Universal monster rallies.
I know, but it wasn't. It just dilutes things in my book,
Yeah.
Timothy Dalton, by the way, was great. Penny Dreadful.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
Rory Kinnear is the son of a guy called Roy Kinnear,
Yes.
who was actually a British comedic actor.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
Well, he's in Taste the Blood of Dracula as the guy who collects Dracula's remains and sells them to Ralph Bates. Yes. So he has cred. I always loved him in Three Musketeers. The Three Musketeers.
Oh, the Richard Lester. My favorite take on those.
That's where he died. That's where he died.
Quite good in those. He's very.
Who is he in those? Who is he in those, Kel?
He's kind of the sidekick to
he's D'Artagnan's servant?
Yeah, D'Artagnan's sidekick. Yeah, he rides with him.
Oh, he's hilarious. Yeah, he's really
wonderful.
Great,
yeah. He I believe he the way that he died is he fell off the horse during filming.
Yeah.
On the last one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it caused like a heart attack or something because of it, but
he
died
Richard
while
Lester,
filming.
I know Lester quit directing after that. He felt because they were very, very dear friends, and he felt he killed him.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
He's very loved in the UK.
There's a new following that same format. There's a new adaptation of the Three Musketeers. That's a French version. So it's in French.
Are they women?
It's in French. No, they're not women.
No, it's traditional.
Eva Green plays Milady de Winter, and she speaks French through the whole film.
Yeah.
Well,
and the first one's called The Three
Musketeers
D'Artagnan, and the second one's called The Three Musketeers Milady. No, it seems a very straight adaptation. A little more action pumped up.
Yeah, I think what's kind of cool is they're doing it from it's Dumas. Yeah.
Dumas, yeah. Usu Tag with a $19 says, I think the vampires from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series are pretty interesting. They can freeze targets with their icy cold touch, shoot beams of their essence through their eyes, and drink blood with their fingertips.
Okay, I'd say those are different creatures then.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's just another kind of monster altogether.
Yeah.
Which sounds fine, but it's...
I want fangs.
Yeah, me too.
Sure. HP Lovecraft is coming in for a quick hello. Hey. How you doing, dude? Just reincarnated for this stream with a $10. That is not dead, which can eternal lie, and in strange eons, even Marvel may die.
I can only hope.
Still the wordsmith, I see. The fan with no name's been a member for 2 months. Says vampires in Cyberpunk, yes or no? The replicants in Blade Runner had an almost Lost Boys feel to them. Interesting to see how the genres could blend.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do vampires can be in anything. It's how you want to do it. I mean, one of my favorite old movies was Queen of Blood, where here's this alien coming from some other planet, and they instead of getting to Earth,
Life Force.
Yeah, well, it crashes on Mars, so they have to go to Mars. And
this is a different film he's talking about.
Yeah. And so they go to Mars, and you realize, she's this beautiful woman who doesn't speak, and she's very, very cool. And one by one, the crew starts, she's eating all the men on the ship and hates the one woman. It's a low budget
thing. A regular woman, then. Gotcha.
Yes, it's territory. But it's a terrific low budget little horror film with John Saxon and Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, cool. I always love John Saxon.
Yeah.
By the way, Life Force. Love me, Life Force.
I do too.
Yeah,
and I love the source novel, Space Vampires. I was just talking to my wife about how much I like that book.
Oh,
Patrick Stewart's first on-screen kiss,
it's based
by the
on
way.
a terrific book by Colin Wilson, and it's really, really good. And then of course they do what they do in which I love the film. I always had I'm a big fan of Life Force. The first 20 minutes are the best 20 minutes in a movie. So,
where's recanting the story of what happened on the ship?
Well, no, when
or
they
just
get
Matilda May's tits. I mean,
yes, when they get to the vampire queen. Wow.
Yes. Matilda May is
unbelievable. Matt, have you ever seen it?
Wow.
Life Force, sure, yeah.
Okay, so Matt knows that's how you start a movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a hook for sure.
But it has a great Quatermass in the Pit feel, or 5 Million Years to Earth, they call it here. It has that you can tell is a big influence on that film. It's terrific.
I think it's a good film. I think it's a very underrated film. It's canon, isn't it? Didn't Canon do?
I believe so, but they let Toby Hooper go to town on it, and it had great special effects, and I dug it. Richard Edlund did a really good job.
Great cast.
Responsible for one of the best vampire films, Salem's Lot,
all time.
TV version of Salem's Lot. The first one. The first one. The second one's a little closer to the book, but it's just nowhere near as
the first
effective.
one. The first
there you go.
I always used to want to be on the second floor because I didn't want vampires to come through. But that ruined it. That movie ruined it because they float and they scratch on your window. So, and my kid used to. After I showed my kid that, I couldn't find garlic in my kitchen. And he put it in a bowl by his window upstairs.
Angry Goat with the $10 says, and have you read Salem's Lot? I didn't realize how different it was to most vampire stories till I did. I'm also from a small Maine town, and King's depiction of small Maine town life and people is perfect.
It's my favorite King novel.
It's one of his too. Apparently,
yeah, I think the character of Ben Mears is spot on.
Yeah.
We're
first
just
of King's many alter ego characters.
Yeah, but it's right on. The character's right on. It's almost.
I love that he has the balls to kill the romantic lead.
Well, it lulls you. It's such a fascinating story without the supernatural aspect. It lulls you to sleep.
Yeah.
And you're fascinated with their lives, and then it starts to do its thing.
Yep. I'm really disappointed and reticent due to the fact that whatever studio it is has kept pushing back the latest film adaptation.
I wonder why that is.
Well, the one account I saw said they did a preview screening at some festival and there was laughter.
Okay.
And that's not what you wanted at a Stephen King vampire movie.
No.
So, but it's directed by the guy that wrote the screenplay for both It and It Chapter 2. So
who knows? Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
A couple of people are asking, when the campaign ends, will there be a chance to get the book again?
We are just talking about that. I didn't realize there was that option. And it turns out there is. You can, because the hard publishing fact is that even though we're done, printing graphic novels in the aftermath of the pandemic is kind of like you get in line and wait. So we will not be, the book won't reach backers until September or October of next year. And I didn't realize that you have the option to still extend the offer to people. We are discussing that with the people that are running our campaign right now. It looks like we probably will.
Yeah.
But I don't want to promise that
Sure.
until we know for sure. But
yeah, that
we will,
is
the best way to keep a track of that is to follow the campaign right now. Even if you're
Yeah.
not pledging right now, follow it right now, because
Yeah,
then you will continue to get the updates that we post over the course of the upcoming months. So
And now
Yes.
that we're aware of a lot of the, Matt and I just always were the makers of books. Now, when you're trying to create these or actually publish them, now you're starting to see a lot
a
of
whole different side of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the one thing that has, in an odd way, that has made me even more committed was, well, once we get these coming out, then it is once a year. Then it is then that assembly line will work for us.
Right, we are up against the clock, so I'm going to grab a couple more, and then we're going to be done, gentlefolk. Andrew Graham with a £5 says Judge Dredd defeated Dracula. He shot the shape of a cross in his chest. It was
so this
cool.
is an opportunity for me to sing the praises of Dredd, one of my favorite comic book movies of all time.
Oh, it's wonderful. Absolutely
Tidy,
brilliant.
uncomplicated, no fucking character arc for Dredd. He is at the beginning and the end the same character.
Yep.
Never took off his helmet.
Doesn't cry.
Carl Urban
Doesn't
knocked that fucking thing off the planet. That's
no crying with
The
Dredd.
story
no
arc is
crying, and
Anderson's.
I was so
That's
sad
the
that it was
story
not a commercial hit,
Me
because
too.
Alex Garland, who has gone on to do all sorts of remarkable things, had it written out as a trilogy, and the last part would have involved Judge Death.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
yeah, I know what might have been. What might have been. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Dredd
I
is
can
one
rewatch
of the
that thing
greatest
just on an
comic
endless
heroes.
loop. I love
Yeah.
it so much.
Yes, and my kids turned me on to that and said,
Yeah.
"Dad, you have got to watch this." And
It's brilliant. It's,
Yeah,
it's
and I sat down.
that is an almost perfect comic book
it
movie.
is.
Yeah,
Exactly. And beyond just Dredd, if I was to say this is what is a comic book movie supposed to be, that's what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
Yep.
Not quite as good as
and
the
again-
Stallone version, but pretty good.
No, not well, what can be.
And again, Dredd, 90 minutes in and out. 90 minutes in and out. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Very,
Compared to the way Stallone bellows that throughout that whole movie, the one instance where Urban like is talking over the intercom to the building, and he says,
"Oh yeah,
Mama is not the law."
Yeah.
Mama's not the law.
Just the way
I
he
am
just
the
says it,
law.
so like he doesn't need to yell that shit, you know.
I love me some Carl Urban.
No.
I love me some Carl Urban.
Well, he's relentless the way Dredd should be. He's just relentless.
yeah,
Yeah.
Unflinching, absolutely unflinching.
Terrific.
Russell Griffin with a £5 says The Queen of the Damned was an abortion of a movie. The book was great.
Isn't that largely due to the whatever her name was, Alicia dying during production?
I don't think they put a lot of effort into it. I thought it seemed like such a step down from the grandeur of the early ones, and it seemed like a TV movie rather than a theatrical.
Well, yeah, they didn't put the dough in for
No,
sure.
it just there was
and
no
she
money on-
also died during filming, didn't she?
I believe
plane crash, yeah.
Yeah, they had to work
Yeah.
around that. So
Yeah.
never a good option.
Never.
No. And Eric K with a $2. Have any of you seen Brotherhood of the Wolf?
Love it. Love
Yep.
Brother of the Wolf.
No.
A real cool pulpy story set in what era of France? The 1780s, something like that.
Well, they're the ones who started the werewolf stuff. The
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
they're the ones who started writing werewolf stories and had it in their history the way Transylvania had Vlad.
Hey, so totally off topic. Let me make a great recommendation here for a show that a lot of people don't seem to know about. It's on Max. It's on Max. Warrior. Has anybody watched this? So there's 3 seasons of it. It is, with a 4th one coming, it is based upon a concept that Bruce Lee tried to develop and never was able to bring to fruition before he died. His daughter is one of the producers on it. And it is about the Tong Wars in San Francisco in the 1890s.
Oh.
So huge Asian cast, and also huge. So it's kind of like the Asians versus the Irish in regards to their trying to take over.
My
various
favorite
jobs,
conflict of all
various
time, by the
jobs
way.
and various underworld aspects. Huge cast of characters. They're all incredibly nuanced and well developed. It does, it has a huge amount of very well developed female characters without seeming like it has an axe to grind. Lots of great kung fu in action. It's brutal as balls. There's a lot of just bare knuckled, brutal fighting. It's fantastic. I can't rave about it enough. Warrior has a shitty title. Like, that's why nobody knows about it. It's like Warrior. That sounds ordinary as fuck, you know. No, it's anything but. It's really, really great.
We'll do this one, and this is the final one. If you haven't had your super chat read, I will go through them on Sunday, but we pretty much minced all of them.
Great.
So thank you so much. Sparta Chris with a $20. Have you seen the movie Priest, a poorly adopted film of a manga in a dystopian future where the Catholic Church rules after a 1,000-year war with monster vampires is starting back up with priests as the elite warrior? Is this Paul Bethany? Is this the Bethany?
Paul Bethany. I remember this was some time ago it came out. I remember it was it was heavy on the dystopian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've never heard of that. That's when you said
It
Paul
came out
Bettany,
around
what was the one where Bettany played Gabriel, played the angel?
Well, it came out around the same time as Abraham Lincoln versus vampires, if I remember.
Yeah,
This is surprisingly fun, I gotta say.
Which was fun.
Yeah.
But it came out around that same time and kind of killed vampires for a little bit.
Wasn't it the whole thing like? And then there was the Hansel and Gretel at the same
Yeah,
time
yeah,
as well, and
Snow White and the Huntsman and all that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there you go. Right. The clock is against us, chat. So thank you so much indeed, everybody. Again, if your super chat wasn't read, I will go through it on Sunday afternoon tea with us, but we did a shit ton. So thank you so much for that. Kelley and Matt, thank you so much indeed for being on the show today. Matt, anything you'd like to say before we go? And I'll be back in a second.
Well, again, my new Grendel book, Grendel, Devil by the Deed, Master's Edition, comes out the 22nd of November. It's an all-new retelling of the original 100 Roads storyline. All brand new art and story by me, colored by my son, Brennan Wagner. And next year sometime is my next Grendel series called Devil's Crucible. But go check out Dracula, because it's fucking awesome, isn't it, Kelley?
I think it's the best thing we've done
Yep.
together. No, it
certainly qualifies. Yep.
It is. I think it's one of the great things I've been associated with, and I took it on as a personal thing, just for myself, just to do something for myself. I needed the restorative elixir of that script to that was just unencumbered by anything. It was just tell a story. And be unencumbered by anything, and it exceeded my dreams. So to see it come out, be in print like this with my buddy.
Well, it's not in print yet, dude.
No, but to see it, like, you know,
it will be.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in my career, it's a high watermark for me. So I'm very, very pleased.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
Are you both gone? Because I had to run down for a quick Amazon delivery. Have you both
No,
gone?
I'm fine. I'm never
Kelley,
leaving, I'm
no,
never leaving.
Kelley, is there anything you'd like to plug before you go?
I will be here the whole time.
He wants to know what you want to talk about before you sign off.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm
just Dracula.
Yeah, that was you know me.
Link in the chat top, pinned link at the top, folks, and I will put the link in the description in case you're watching this back. Just go into the description box down below. The link will be there. Please, I mean, hopefully, from what you've heard today from these two guys, I don't think they could have done a better job of showing you exactly how invested they are in this, how much they believe in it, how much they, more importantly for somebody like me, how much they love this stuff.
Yeah.
And that shines through. And you know, I've known Kelley's work for so long now. And I did pick up Batman Grendel, you know, back in the day. So, you know, Matt, I've been fully aware. And when Kelley mentioned your name, I was like, oh, what, Grendel? And he's like, yeah, you know. So, you know, we're talking about a couple of absolute doozies of the industry here. And that in itself just gives me so much faith. So thank you so much indeed. Molly.
Yes.
Anything that you'd like to plug before we go?
Well, probably not, actually. I'll cede my time today. Stay focused on these lads here, these gentlemen.
this lovely pair.
Doing wonderful work.
Well, I can say that you bloody hell no, the chat have gone a bit crazy today, and God bless them, because you're literally a couple of bucks short of 221 thousand. So it's
there you go.
absolutely
Thank you.
shot up.
Yeah.
Chat, absolutely unreal. The lot of you. You know, you've seen Kelley on the show multiple times. Matt, welcome back anytime. It's been absolutely wonderful to speak to you. Just, you know, about anything and all. I think we could discuss pretty much the color of paint by now. And it's just the first time. So thank you so much, the pair of you, for giving up your free time for this. Chat, thank you so much indeed for watching today. Next week, it'll be on Gary's channel, and we're going to have the Soska sisters as guests there. So we'll be going through their body of work at the moment, and of course the upcoming Yaira project for the Rippaverse. Back the Rippaverse as well while you're at it. And yeah, it's the mods. Thank you so much indeed for giving up your free time. I appreciate you so much. Everybody who super chatted, and again, if you didn't get your super chat read out, I will be reading it out on Afternoon Tea with Az on Sunday to give you the time that you deserve. There was so much conversation around vampires and horror with the super chat.
Let me just think if there are any quick questions you want to forward to us from those. We could send over some quick answers too. So
sure. If any comes through, I absolutely will. But I think I kind of crushed it. But you know, a bit proud of myself. You know, pretty proud of myself for that. But you have gone over the £180,000 mark.
Real money, the real
which is exactly, which is
real
the proper
money.
way.
the stuff Dracula was stockpiling.
Yeah. What I will say quickly before we do go, I want to give some people a Loxor. He gifted 5 memberships to the stream. Best name I can think of also gifted 5 memberships to the stream, as well as the new members that came along. Thank you so much indeed. We'll be back with some more stuff very soon. So until then, you take care. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.